Good evening, everybody. What a great night. We got the windows open. So I'll call the select board meeting to order on April 29th at 6:30 PM. We will do our usual public comment first for anything someone wants to say that is not on the agenda, limited to no more than 3 minutes. Ready? Okay, no one's there. So we will move right into our agenda. So come on up now. So this is Mike Sopansky, and I have practiced his name, so I think I've got it right. Sopansky. So welcome, Mike. Mike has applied for one of the open positions on the Capital Investment Planning Committee. There's 2 open positions. It's a 5-member committee, so we need 2 more. You would be one of those. So we've got your application. So why don't you just tell us why you're interested in doing this, and what you think we would find interesting in your background.
First of all, thank you for having me here and calling me in. But do I need to state my name or you guys?
Go ahead and where you live.
So full name is Gregory Michael Sopansky, but Mike Ski for short. I'll keep it simple for the town.
So Mike Ski.
Mike Ski.
Okay, all right.
Keep it real simple. And I've been in town for 3 years. I knew as I got a little bit older, more established in where I was living, I wanted to serve the community in no better way than do it on a committee and then maybe one day sit with you guys at the board. But the time will tell if I'll rise to those levels. And what I hope to do is really help with some of the town strategy in the future and kind of the way the town is heading. I have a daughter that's 7, and I kind of want to help shape and grow the community around so that she has a better, I would say a better place to live. This is a great place to live, but keep it consistent for what it is.
That's great. So the capital is a good stepping stone to get to select board. The financial part of the town is really important when you set up here to understand that piece of it. There's a lot more to it, but the financial understanding is really important to doing this job. So that's great.
Yes.
Okay. Jason Ilinowski has sent us an email highly recommending that we appoint Mike. So that box is checked.
So in spite of that, I support him.
Okay. Jason,
No thanks, Jason.
Jason is a great chair. He's been involved in a lot of capital projects in this town and does a great job running that committee. So I think you'll enjoy working with him and the other guys on it too. Okay. You got a golf course person, and then I forget what the other guy's background is, but anyway, it's a good committee. So I think you'll like it. I've got to remember that Andrew is sick. He just returned from Roma, and I guess brought something with him from there. So he's here. So don't let me forget to go to him. And there's Mark. And Mark is also sick. So we've got a lot of sickness here tonight. Okay. We're not used to having those 2 sitting up there. So don't let me forget him. Okay. Questions for Mike? Marguerite?
Nope. Thanks for volunteering.
Al? Sam?
Nope, background looks great and delighted to have you part of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Andrew?
Any questions? As Jason's endorsement is good enough for me. And thank you very much for stepping forward for this position.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna have to do roll call votes tonight because Andrew's not here, so don't let me forget that either. All right, so truly thank you for doing this. I'm sure Jason will get you involved right away. We got a big capital project on the coming up on May 10th. My guess is he's listening someplace, so he's gonna know we did this tonight. Now, let's vote, then we'll tell you what you have to do from that point on. Okay, so Sam, you want to make the motion?
Sure. I move that we appoint Mike Skapansky to the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, term to expire 6/30/25.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Marguerite?
Aye.
Al?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
And Cook is aye, so 5-0. Okay, now Jim's not here. So the next thing you've got to do is be sworn in with the town clerk.
Okay.
And his hours are what, 8:30 to 5 or so? 8 to 5. And
Downstairs right now.
he's right there. If you wanted to go downstairs right now, he could swear you in if you.
I will
wanted
go
to
do it
get
right
away.
now then.
Okay, all right, that's a good idea. Very, very efficient. So we're not gonna let you get away. So go do it, and then you're officially appointed. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, okay, so next. So Tony, why don't the whole finance team sit down to come on up? Oh, come on up, Carla. So thank you, Tony, for coming. Tony is one of the named partners of our audit firm. You've been doing the audit for 3 years, this third year, I think.
This is the fourth, I believe,
Fourth?
right?
Okay, the fourth?
Yep, this is the fourth. Time travels, yeah.
It does.
fast.
It does indeed. It's always more than you think it is. So, we've got the financial statements. We read, I assume everything that you told us. We know we've got a clean opinion again, so that's good. So we just want to turn it over to you and you tell us
Okay.
what you think we should know.
Okay, so everyone has basically I summarized everything in kind of the PowerPoint. You know, if we want to reach back into the financials, let me know and we can, dig in and see if we need to answer any questions there. But like you said, my name's Tony Roselli. I'm the managing partner for Roselli Clark and Associates. And it's a pleasure to be here tonight to do a presentation. This is the fourth year that we've audited. And this is for the audit year ended June 30 of 24. So the information right now is 9 or 10 months old, just so everyone knows that things change quickly, especially in this environment that we're in now. So that's that. This is, like I said, a snapshot of June 30 of 24. And we can skip by that and we'll go to the contents. So basically and I've done this in every audit. I do the quick introduction, but for the folks at home, people new, kind of describe what an audit is. So the audit and I think some of you might have an audit background. I think some come from like a big.
I've got a tax background. So
You've got a tax
I've been
background.
young for 20 years but always tax.
Yeah. So we're bound by generally accepted auditing standards. That's how we do an audit. Where it's a government, we've got one step further. We've got to do generally accepted government auditing standards, which adds a whole nother layer of things that we need to do as auditors to satisfy ourselves, because the GAGAS, which is the generally accepted government auditing standards, is called the Yellow Book because back in 1983, when they first put it, it had a yellow cover. So now they call it the Yellow Book, and they don't dare change that color. It's this ugly mustard yellow book that we have to follow that they update every 3 or 4 years. And in there it says, this is all the CPEs you have to have. Here are all the standards you have to follow. Here's all the AICPA standards you have to follow. So that's basically how we model our testing of an audit. It basically requires a review of your internal control over the major transactions being revenue, disbursements, payroll, and journal entries. Those are the major things going on in your system. So we have to do internal control over that. Then we have to do risk assessment. So we go through our planning process. Are there any areas that have high risk, low risk, and we focus our audit on where the high risk items are? For example, we'll spend a lot of time with the treasurer because we feel that cash should be reconciled. It should be reconciled accurately and timely. So that goes high on the list. Receivables goes high on the list. Some things are low on the list. So that's another step that we do. If you qualify for a federal audit, which this town is off and on, I believe this year we did a federal audit.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you receive and spend over $750,000, and that cap is going up to $1 million next year, you're required to have a whole separate set of procedures done, and that's called the federal audit, where the federal government gives us guidelines that we now have to go through for your grant management to see if you're managing your grants the way they should be. And there's a little compliance supplement that we go through. At the end of the process, that whole process, we have to decide, do we have a clean opinion or do we have a dirty opinion? The dirty opinion is the qualified opinion. Did you do something wrong? Did something not match? Is there a material error? Happy to report we didn't have any of that in Southborough. We've never had any of that. I don't expect any of that. You've got a great financial team and it's well managed all around. Just everything clicks here. So it's a really, really good audit. I like it. And It's an audit that we go to, we don't say, oh boy, let's catch our breath, let's, because certain places we know we're gonna run into walls everywhere. So we gotta, bring all our ammunition and artillery and really hit it. But this place is really very clean, and we gave a clean opinion. And what we're doing today, right now, is SAS 115, which is communicating to you. That's the final step. The one thing that is a misnomer, just for the public, is it's not a forensic audit. So if someone's, taking a little bit of money down at, Public Works or clerk's office or somewhere, a small amount of money, we are not going to catch that unless we're doing a forensic audit. So this is not that. And I just wanted to kind of, make at least the public aware of that, because at times, a newspaper article will pop up, oh, so-and-so stole, $380 and we caught him. And it's like, where were the auditors? How come they didn't see that? Well, we don't drill down that far. So I just wanted to kind of make that clear as to what exactly we're doing when we come in and do the audit. Any questions on that? Hopefully that was a nice, little summary for everyone. And I didn't put anyone to sleep. So let's move forward. Let's get to the fun stuff. All right, reserve balances. So we'll talk about economic trends first. And you can see on page 4 that your reserves have steadily gone up. They took a little, bit, came down a little bit because you did some spending from your surplus, your free cash. But for the most part, you've kept your reserves right where the agencies like it, the credit agencies. So try to maintain that balance. You're doing a great job. If we go back to 17, you'll see that there was about 3.5 million, and now there's about somewhere around 6 or so million, 6.5 million in reserves. Oh, and I have a typo there.
24.
I forgot. Yeah, I forgot. That's I'll get a material weakness for that. So, but yeah, that's supposed to be 2024. That last
fee reduction?
column. Exactly. Brian should have caught it. Sure.
Mike.
Could you just characterize what's in the reserve funds as, clearly, our formal reserve fund is significantly less than that.
Yeah, great question. So and the way I define this reserve fund is the way the S&P defines it. So I'm trying to compare apples to apples. It's not the way DOR defines it, and probably not the way you folks describe it, but it's got your stabilization funds. That's one sum.
Mm-hmm.
Your second component is your undesignated balance in your general fund, which is the number that is commonly referred to, not quite, but free cash. So when you get your free cash number, that's close to what your undesignated. The DOR does some of their own machinations of that number. So it's not quite that number, but it's close. And then the third component is what's called assigned fund balance, which is basically the amount that you have encumbered, okay, that you will be spending in the following year. So in economic terms, it's not really a reserve because it's already, basically spoken for in the next year. But for S&P purposes, they add that in as a reserve. So that's why.
So those are funds that have been collected but yet to be
Unspent,
expended.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
right. You've earmarked them.
Okay.
So
But
you
in
earmarked them
emergency, you could use them for
Just
something.
to
else.
spend. Those are actually already, so for example, if the police department had earmarked a vehicle, but they didn't have it by year end, that would be held over as an encumbrance. That's
free cash.
That's what that sort of thing is.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yep.
So yeah, so the number is not, so in your finance meetings, when you're having conversations, it's a different number than what's on here.
Okay.
Now, the reserve trends, Southborough is, close to 10%. You're in that second tier. And you've got the new S&P model. What are they giving you for reserves now? You don't have that part. So they used to give you 10% for reserves, was the amount that would count towards your bond rating. There is a new model that came out. that we're going to talk about a little later when we go through debt. But Southborough is in tier 2. So tier 1 used to be 15%, higher than 15%. And the way we do the ratio is we take that reserve number that we had on that prior slide and divide it by your expenditures. So reserves divided by your general fund expenditures. If it's above 15%, you go tier 1. If you're 8 to, actually, yeah, if you go 8 to 15%, you're tier 2, and that's where Southborough ends up. The good part about that is you do have a AAA. So you don't need, Southborough scores so high in other categories that you don't need that 15% to pull the boat. Some towns do need that 15% to score high in that in the reserve category. But you've had this reserve ratio. It's been about the same since I've been doing the audit, and you've always had the AAA. So you're doing what you need to do. So let's go to the next page, which is the economic trends, kind of summarizing what I've just talked about. Your reserves decreased from 23 to 24, from 10.8 to 9.4. There was a planned use of free cash of 2.4 million. That was the biggest hit and why it went down. You made that back by having some local receipts of 1.7, and you had expenditures of 1, but there was some other, probably some other journal entries and things like that that caused that difference. So it seems like the town's goal is to spend free cash and then make it back through good budget management and through conservatively forecasting your revenues. So you spend the 2 million, but then you get it back because your reserves have, steadily climbed, and you've done a good job, with that process. Any questions on those 2 bullets? The ratio is approximate to the state average. You're in the tier 2 bracket, and you've got a AAA rating. So that's all good.
And it's my understanding that we're never going to get to the top with Moody's because of the way that's structured.
Moody's, the Moody's metrics are not structured to small towns.
Right.
So Cambridge, Brookline, Boston, the really big towns, Newton, because you've got to have one of their leading metrics is the equalized valuation. And your equalized valuation is never going to get to, what
That high.
Moody's has.
But if we were to get to the top of the list at Moody's, my understanding that wouldn't really have a significant impact on our interest borrowing cost.
No, not at all. It's
Be
more of a,
good enough.
it's more of an accreditation,
Yeah.
so to speak. It would not impact your borrowing costs really that much, if any.
Good.
So I kind of, the last time you were probably bond rated, I know they've changed this, but the last time you got your bond rating, this is how they did this. We've gone over this in the past. There's a certain percentage for the economy, which is basically your equalized valuation. You're getting, 30% for that. Management scores 20%. Budget flexibility 10%, budget performance 10%, liquidity 10, and debt 10. From what I understand, debt's gone up to 20, so something else on here has changed. But you've scored, when I did your average here, you scored a 1.5, and that sneaks you into that AAA category.
What's the range for the AAA?
The range, so AAA is a 1, but if you're 1.6 or under, they look, then you're in that box where they say, because some 1.5, 1.6 don't get the AAA, some do. So they look at other things. They might give more weight to demographics, a little bit more weight to, how well it's managed. We've seen a lot of problems with the audits. We've seen a lot of problems with management. So when you got the 1.5, your other things kind of said, yeah, Southborough is a AAA.
Weren't we 1.5 last year too? I think.
You've been right around that 1.5. I think you were 1.6 maybe one year, but you've been right around that 1.5.
In January of 25 was our last bond rating evaluation, correct?
Yes.
And you got the AAA, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yes.
And so that's good for a year, presumably, unless something crazy happens.
That's good until your next, until your next, now I don't know what's gonna happen. I mean, a lot of things are going on, as we're all aware. So I don't know what's gonna happen. Debt, the bond markets went crazy, back 3 weeks ago. They were going up 2 or 3 tenths overnight. And, I talked to the bankers and I'm like, what's going on with municipal debt? Is anything happening? And they're like, we're not even doing it right now. It's just, we try to give a quote, the next day it's something else, the next day it's something else. It's starting to settle down a little bit, so hopefully it does settle. But now there's this new removing the tax exempt status. You've heard about that, right, Brian?
Yes.
Of the debt, which is going to increase your interest rate
Sure.
to help make up for the reduction in taxes. Hopefully this is something that's on the table to fill some of those gaps. So that could cost the towns a little bit. In speaking to the bankers, they think there's better than a 50% chance of that happening, that the bonds are not going to be tax exempt. So they're going to be adding probably 1% to 1.5% to your bond cost. So that's something to keep in mind going forward. So we've talked about all of this, Brian. So we could go to OPEB, which is on the next page. And from what I understand, Linda's going to give you a really nice
Next
presentation, but I got some bullets here. So GASB 74 and GASB 75, that's the government auditing, government accounting standard that we use to calculate OPEB. But thank God we get help from an actuary. So we do get a report. They calculate the liability for the town. We use the numbers in that report. The latest one you received showed an OPEB liability. And for those who don't know what OPEB is, that may be listening at home, OPEB is other post-employment benefits. So for the most part, it's health insurance that you are contributing towards a retiree. So someone works for the town for 20 years and they retire and they qualify for health benefits, the town has to pay a piece of that. So the GASB is saying you are accruing that liability as they work for you. But that liability just doesn't happen the day they retire. It's actually accruing. So you have to recognize this liability. And that's basically what that means. It's what you need to pay. So if everything ended today and everyone retired, you would need 38.7 million in that fund to fund health insurance every year for your retirees. And it's 3.5 million less than the prior year, which is good news. So it has been going down. You had a really good investment result. Investment income was 395K versus 221 the prior year. Your discount rate went up to 6.48 from 5.6. And there's 3.7 million in the fund. Average age of employees is 48. So that number is going to go up. The average age of your retirees is going to go up. People are living longer, which is good for the white-haired guys in the group, So I'm happy with that. But when we look at our, back when I was a little kid trying to figure out, hey, you see this little Social Security things. Hey, this says I'm only going to live 74 years. That number is now into the 80s. So it's going up fast. And in the next 15 or 20 years, we might even see 90s with the advance of medicine. So that liability is real, and you're responsible for that as a town until that person passes. So someone who retires at the age of 62 or 3 and lives to be 95, that's 33 years. So it's a very significant amount. And as that population, that bucket gets bigger, it's going to make this number get bigger as you get close to it. So right now you are, like I said, 3.7 million. You're in good shape. You're not like the pension or some of the other liabilities out there that have been funding for years. This basically just started. And you're basically at you know, a little bit above average from where I see the other towns are. You've got more of a head start. And from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, when your pension liability is fully funded, probably, what is it, 2030?
2040, it has to be. 42?
Is it 40?
I'm sorry, 30.
It's
30
you-
something.
legally, you have to be funded by 40, but I think Worcester's 34 or something. So they're much sooner. So in about 10 years, when your pension is fully funded, there's going to be a little windfall there because you don't have to make that big payment. What a lot of towns are doing are adopting policies now, not when it happens, to take a portion of that windfall and more aggressively fund the OPEB.
When
That's
it happens. When it happens.
Right, then
when it happens,
do it.
right?
We
So
get to the end of the.
yeah, the problem you're run into, if you have to put that philosophy out here now, start to build it, that this is what we're gonna do. This is the plan. This is our long-term goal. If it is, I'm just saying this is what a lot of towns are doing. Cause I had one town go 100% on their pension already. And it created $6 million. And the police wanted some, the public works wanted some, the school wanted some. So it was like, no, well, no, we want to fund our OPEB. And then it turned into a real problem. So I think it's a good idea to start establishing those strategies now.
The police, fire, whatever, wanted some of that in their salaries in their next contract?
Contract, yeah, exactly. Contracts, school wanted a piece of it. So it was really, it was like, wow, we have this 5 million that we were planning on putting into OPEB, and now everyone's, you know, wants a piece of this windfall because they were fortunate enough to hit 100% pretty quick.
Perish the thought that the taxpayers should get it back.
So those that have decided to implement that policy to direct the surplus created by the fully funded pension over to OPEB, right? How are they doing that? What mechanism are they doing to adopt that policy?
They're just hard coding it in their policies that, so.
So it's like a select board policy to do?
Yeah,
that?
like an OPEB policy. So in your OPEB policy, we're currently doing X number of dollars per year. We keep the money in a managed investment account. When the pension is fully funded, we will take a portion of that, and you guys can figure out what makes sense. We'll take a portion of that and put it into OPEB. So what the towns are doing are having their actuaries, and Linda can talk to this better than I can when she's out next week or in a couple of weeks. They're having their actuaries kind of schedule it out to see, okay, and you're fortunate enough that you're Worcester County, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Linda also she's the actuary for Worcester County, so she does both. So you're fortunate enough for her to tell you that, hey, 10 years from now, this is what's going to be available. And this is what your OPEB is going to be 10 years from now. You know, she can do that sort of study. And this is a strategy you may want to adopt. You know,
We could actually do that, but a subsequent board could come along and change that policy.
Well, that's what I was trying
Good
to
to socialize
find out.
that.
Is it a bylaw? Is it a policy? A policy, of course, is easy to change. Bylaws,
Yep.
not so easy to change.
But I think if we did make it a policy, it's good to create the structure there and some momentum to do it that way. And somebody would have to make the argument to change it later if they decided to.
right. If the
Somebody-
philosophy is in place and it's talked about enough, it lessens the blow when you get there.
Okay, all right.
All right, the pension liability update, so, so Worcester County and Worcester County's, funding ratio went down, it's 50.4. And the reason it went down is because this was a valuation done as of the end of 23. So the market was kind of in flux. I think when you get your 24 valuation, it might be a little bit better because it was a pretty good investment year in fiscal 24, calendar 24, because pension is done on a calendar basis, not a fiscal basis. So you're down at 50.4%. Most of the funds in the state are at 70 to 90%. Some are at 100. So,
Worcester is at the bottom of the
so,
list.
so you're way
which I've
behind.
seen
Yeah, you're way behind.
consistently, unfortunately.
And
Why is that? They just don't have a good.
Because they
board
haven't
to-
managed it as
It,
successfully as other pensions.
right, it has,
Group pay.
they've done better in recent years, but probably 10 years ago. And if there's any investment people here, you all understand how compounding works.
Sure, yeah.
If you miss those first couple of years of compounding, it's gonna cost
You
you,
get it back.
it's gonna cost you a ton at the end.
And
So,
those boards tend to be political appointees. often,
Yep.
Unfortunately, and so you don't have people who are loaded with, professional investment managers.
it,
typically.
yeah, so what happens is, you take a place like Southborough, which Southborough's, pretty affluent. You have some wealth. It's a good community, but now you're mixed in with communities that aren't as affluent. So when Worcester comes up with its assessment, when Linda says you can do this, she'll give 3 choices. You can do A, B, or C for your assessment. They're not gonna pick the one that works for Wellesley and,
Yep.
Southborough and Newton. They're not gonna pick that one because it's gonna hurt the Atholls, the Winchendons. It's gonna hurt those folks.
Bulk of the
Yeah,
participants. Yeah.
so you end up getting punished because you're not able to pick up this funded liability as quickly as Wellesley has its own pension system. They're 100% funded, because they can manage it, they can assess what they want. They don't have to worry about, other communities in there. And that's where it's hurt you. So you're at, and Wilmington ran into this problem. Wilmington has more free cash than anybody in the state of Massachusetts, but they're in the Middlesex County pension. So what Wilmington does is every year, they put money into a stabilization fund. Actually, no, in Worcester, you have to do stabilization. Wilmington actually contributes more than they're required to, and they get credit for it. Middlesex allows that, Worcester doesn't. So even if you wanted to put more in, it doesn't get credited to you folks. It goes across the
Into
the full
pot,
spectrum
yeah.
of towns. So that kind of handcuffs you a little bit. Whereas Wilmington said, let's take this into our own hands. Middlesex is actually allowing us to put more in if we want. Even though they're assessing us low, we have extra money. So a couple of times they put $5 million extra in it. It's really impacted their liability. And what's going to end up happening here is that pension number is going to be a big number, that assessment,
Yep.
to get fully caught up, or they're going to stretch it out to 2040, which is, again, just kicking the can down the road. So, and 240 is the statutory
Right.
cap.
Well, we actually have a special act in the pipeline to issue pension obligation bonds that we don't necessarily want to do, but it's good to have that on the shelf if interest rates are totally crazy. And Arlington, I think, did that. I think Wellesley did it like $60 million worth.
Yeah, Andover just did it.
Yeah.
Brockton,
Just did it?
they did it just before the rates skyrocketed.
Yeah.
So like in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a time a couple of years ago when it was pretty attractive.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, Andover hit a home run because I think the pension bonds they got were like 2.2%,
Wow.
like
that's crazy.
insane, because the rates were so low with
Yep.
the pandemic and everything.
Yep.
And Brockton did the same thing. I think Springfield might have done the same thing. They did about 700 million. And the beauty of that is, yeah, they're able, what they could do now, because the debt service is less than the assessment.
Right.
One town which couldn't get it through, they wanted to take the delta and put that into OPEB.
Hmm.
So they wanted to do pension obligation bonds. There was a delta.
Yep.
Take that difference and start funding OPEB. So they're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But what happened was the rates ran away.
Oh.
So this was probably around March of 2022. The rates,
Great concept.
Ukraine war
Time.
started,
Yeah.
the FOMC started raising rates and they ran away. Now it's pretty difficult.
I
to
don't
do.
see how you could do it now. How could
No.
It's
anyone
right
think they've
now
got
you
any
couldn't.
idea of what interest rates are going to do?
Yeah, right now you couldn't do it.
Can't do it. On the other hand, if something happens and we have that capability, if interest rates do wind up going way down for some.
If there's
reason,
a
Yeah.
black swan event,
we can move.
yeah, if there's a black swan event that drops those rates, which nobody could have
Can't
predicted
predict.
that. Nobody could have predicted the pandemic.
But we
and,
could be ready
You could be ready, so you don't have to go through the legislative
Yeah.
process, which
Yep.
is like a 1-year process.
at best.
So fuel for thought. Okay, we had some informational items that we reported. SAS 115, we already discussed. Network security, just, stay on top of that. I know you guys are doing a good job with that, but the bad guys try to stay one step ahead. The good guys are trying to catch up to the different things that are happening. And about once a month, I see one of my clients up there on the Fox News or something where they got to close the school down for a couple of days because they can't operate. And so just stay on top of the network security. The biggest thing, which I believe you have, is the phishing, where you try to trick your employees. Yeah. And
Mr. Stivers got fished last week.
and the ones that fail, get a picture of them, put on the on the wall. That's what I have to do at my house, put a picture of my wife on the wall every time she fails. She comes running in. Tony, I just got a text from the Bank of America. They're gonna take all our money. What are we gonna do? I'm like, don't click that. Did you click that? Don't click that. But it's crazy. And to me, I know when I just know. I don't click on it. It's just stupid. If someone wants to get to me, call me. But some people they don't know. They have to click on it. They think something's gonna happen, and they disguise it very well now.
You do.
Sometimes I have to forward it to my IT. And I'll say, is this a cool email or not? Because I don't want to touch it if it isn't. So it's always good to just be aware of that, train your employees, make your employees very aware of the problems that could happen. Fraud risk. Carla does a great job, reconciling with the other departments on cash receipts and doing the monthly look at that, looking at the analytics. Is this revenue lower, this year than last? What happened there? Does a great job with that. Sometimes that fraud is looking at you right in the face. You're, if you've got like a transfer station and it was 200,000 one year, now it's 150. It's there, and it's like, how does that happen? It's in the numbers sometimes. And so having those controls in place can help detect that stuff. Your long-term obligations we talked about, which is pension and OPEB. And great news, Brian, good job. Investment income doubled the prior year, so 600K. And municipal investing is a little not as easy as if you're a corporation, because Massachusetts has rules. You've got the list that you can only invest in. General fund is very strict on what you can invest in. So it's nice. One of the bad things about the FOMC raising rates is obviously the increase in the debt. But it did increase the amount you could earn in net investment income. So it's good to see towns take advantage of that. And then observations. So we had a handful of observations in the prior year. Those are all resolved. I think there was something with the assessor that is now like an annual like release of funds. I think there was a couple of other small things. Those are all resolved. We've kind of talked about this. Just pay attention to the macro climate. Bond market's very volatile. Stock market is volatile. Stock market, hopefully it's stabilizing now, but who knows? Supply chain issues, if the tariffs really grab hold, what kind of supply chain issues is this going to create? Here's the one that is a doozy, the federal grants. When Elon got into the Doge with the new administration and they started questioning the grants, looking at them and saying, why do towns need these grants? Why do municipalities, why do states need these grants? And they're looking at them one by one. And we had a big meeting a couple of weeks ago with all the CPAs and some of the people from the state saying, hey, what's going to happen? They're not going to be any, it seems like the goal is no more grants. Go do your own thing. I don't think that's going to happen. And the problem is if you try to call someone, they got laid off. So, the main guy that we talked to, I said, so what are you hearing? He's the one that calls Washington. He goes, everyone I talked to is laid off. He goes, I don't even know what's happening. So, so the federal grants, keep an eye on that. I don't know. I think you rely on your federal grants for a specific purpose. It's not like it's funding. In other states, they use it to help with their budgets and whatnot. That's not the case here. The ARPA was all done for specific items outside of the budget, and all the federal grants you get it done for specific items. So those things, if they got cut, you'd have to cut those services, but they wouldn't affect the general fund. So in Massachusetts, I don't think it's going to be as big of an issue if it happens. I don't think it will. I'm hoping. Other things, just recessionary fears, stagflation, the typical stuff. Just keep an eye on it when you're going through your meetings and your strategy. And I think that's it for the presentation.
That is it?
Yep. Any questions, concerns?
So thank you for coming in person. Appreciate it. We just wanted to get you involved in this debt discussion we're about to have too. So having you here in person was
Okay.
going to be helpful. But I can speak because I am an accountant. I think this team is great. I'm glad you say what you did. I truly enjoy working with both of them. I've worked with them both for a long time and feel highly confident in what they do and the information they give us. So I do agree with you. It's a good team, and we've got a very good situation in this town as far as our financial team, for sure. So Brian, Carla, I want you to know that. Marguerite, anything you want to ask Tony?
No questions, but I look forward to the next part of the discussion.
Okay. Al?
Yeah.
Mike is off.
One quick question. So we have, I'm looking at the balance sheet and, that we have, basically $100 million in long-term liabilities. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but we classified the vast majority of that as either unfunded pension liabilities and or our OPEB obligations. Is that correct?
Yeah. If you go to,
Yeah.
if you go to somewhere, page 36 tells you exactly what's in that number.
Okay.
So it's general obligation bonds of 26 million, compensated absences, 600,000, net pension liabilities, 31.7. Net other post-employment benefits is 98.2. So it's, yeah, if you go to page 36 of the financials,
Okay.
it will describe exactly what's in the long-term liabilities.
Thank you.
Ian?
I don't have any questions. I do have a comment. I'm not an accountant, but as one who has suffered through audits for several decades, I want to say I'm impressed with the fact that we have a clean audit here. Clean audits, in my experience, are pretty rare. Auditors always seem to be able to come up with a list of what I sometimes as a client view as nitpicky kind of things, but they're probably right things that we should be addressing. And for me, at least, it's pretty unusual to have this kind of record here. So kudos to Brian, Carla, Mark, the finance team, to get all the I's dotted and T's crossed in this process. There are a lot of moving parts. It's a never-ending job. Things can break loose from all sorts of crazy angles. And I think the fact that we do that consistently here is pretty impressive. So again, thanks to you guys for the hard work, and let's keep it going. Thank you.
Yeah, when we talk about something during the year, something unusual will come up. Carla's not shy. She'll email me or call me. It's say she's done it incorrectly. It's fixed. By the time we come and do the audit, she's tripped up trying to fix it so fast. I'm like, oh, Carla, you shouldn't have done it that way. Do this. Something like that. I'm not going to put in the management letter. It's a small item. To me, it's an educational process.
Mm-hmm.
If Brian's not reconciling cash, that's a problem. That's going to be a material weakness in the management letter, in the report.
Yep.
And the cash balance is perfect here. It balances. It's a joy. We always have. In other towns, I'd say half. I won't say they're all like that, but in at least half, they got those other. I'm like, what's the other? What does other mean? What does other 1.2 million mean?
I don't know where it is.
And then they take out a list that's 7,000 rows long. I go, does that actually say 2003 at the top of that list? You've been carrying, these are new towns that I go to. You've been accumulating this list wouldn't you think you should adjust something?
And plus, you're reading the news, all sorts of crazy things that happen in terms of town finances that we seem to have escaped, for the most part, at least historically. So again, never-ending challenge and struggle, but again, we seem to do a very capable job, and thanks to the hard work and skill of the team here. So
Andrew?
Yes. Hi, Tony. So thanks. This report sounds very similar to the prior reports we've heard, which is, I think, good news. I echo the positive things that Kathy and Sam and others have said. Just one question for you. It's a point I remember you mentioning before, is about the importance in terms of good, financial management of closing out old articles and looking for ways where there's kind of loose change hanging around and
Yep.
repurposing it. I don't know if in your latest audit you looked at that, or do you have a view on how we're doing on that?
Yeah. So we did that the first year, and generally we do that the very first year. We go in and say, hey, been looked at in 5 years. Do you need it? Can you use it? And Carla cleaned all that up.
Okay.
That's a long process of sitting down with department heads, and you got these old gift accounts that you got in like 1992 that just never got used. And I think the department heads were probably pretty appreciative of the fact that there was some money there that they were not privy to. And I haven't seen that in the more recent audits. There's always one or two small things, but I have not seen that that large amount of stagnant balance, as we call.
She makes sure before every annual town meeting, she goes in as part of her procedure and goes through them. So you shouldn't see a big thing because she does
Right.
this every single year.
Repurpose. If you have any debt proceeds left over, you repurpose that. And that's how it should be. I mean, some of the cities have millions that they've accumulated because they're much bigger than the town of Southborough, but it's just a huge task just to go through once you've let it accumulate. So I think what you're doing on an ongoing basis will satisfy that.
Okay. Well, thanks. It sounds like it wasn't really mentioned because it's already under control.
Yep.
Thank you, Carla, for staying on top of that.
This guy looks like a young Monty Hall.
And so one final comment, remember auditors, Tony, the reason I wasn't an auditor is because, tax people are liked, right? They're liked better than the auditors, but there's a lot of work to do in an audit. They've got to do a lot of things. They've got to, pull a lot of information for you. They do a lot of schedules for you. So again, kudos to the team to do things and do it willingly with a smile on their face. Like I know they do. So
most of my clients like me, but some of them don't.
Here it comes.
Unfortunately, if it's not good news, I do have to deliver it.
So we've got a hand up in our public to ask a question. So Shelley, can you hear us? Shelley? So Shelley, we can't hear you.
Oh, her
So we're going to give you a couple more seconds.
microphone's off, so she.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
the
there she is.
microphone's off, so you may have to reboot to get back on, but we can't hear you at all if you're talking or see you. And so we're going to keep going. If you want to try to come back in, you can, but we can't hear anything.
Oh, connecting to audio.
Here she comes. Oh. All right, we're going to keep going. Okay, Shelley, you can try again if you can. Okay, Shelley?
Sometimes they have their volume down and you don't figure it out till. Check your volume.
Okay, we can't hear you, so we're going to keep going. You may want to just go out completely, shut it down and come back in. Okay, so we asked Tony here for a couple of reasons. We'd like to see him, but we also are going to talk about a our debt policy. You may recall that when the DOR came in a year ago, that they did two things. One was to make a recommendation of a set of financial policies. One of those includes debt. When we last discussed this, I think there were 18 on there that we need to consider. I think we passed or approved 7, but the big one is debt. So Tony, you may not know this, but we've got a big project that's going to be voted on May 10th for a new school. $109 million school. We're going to get $35 million from the MSBA. The bond is expected to be $68.2 million, assuming we get a federal grant for our HVAC system or geothermal and from the state. So it's a big number for us. We've never had debt like this. So we have spent, and I'm looking over, so Andrew's head of the advisory committee.
Yep.
So he and I are both on the Neary Building Committee that was formed about 3 years ago to basically do the work to bring the project forward. So we're here. And of course, the debt is a big thing. There's a lot of people that oppose this project because of the cost. So we've been working very hard to show what the impact to the town is. So Andrew's going to talk about that in a few minutes too. But at the same time, Mr. Hamilton wanted us to bring forward the debt discussion before May 10th to make sure that everybody's aware of what the debt picture of the town would look like if this project is passed on May 10th. So that's where we are tonight. So Andrew, you want to come on up and join us? So Brian, you stay there too. You guys stay there.
Let's make room for you.
Oh, you know.
The war shorts.
Sure.
Good night for it. All right, so Andrew, you want to just describe where we are at this point, you and Brian?
Is it excluded?
Yes.
It's
Yes,
excluded.
it's got to be,
That's
we're going to vote to
Going to be.
for it to be
Gonna vote
excluded.
to exclude.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's big. And
Yeah.
it's 109 million is the project. And what percent are you getting?
32.5 is what we're going to get from the state. So the grant is 35 million. The net to the town should be 68, as long as we get about $5 million of money from the federal government from the Inflation Reduction Act, and then from Massachusetts for the geothermal system that we
Okay.
want to use.
Right. So you might pull up can you move me over? There we go. Having all these other Zoom screens on my screen at the same time. So this is so the policy group met the other day, or at least ones that were available. So we went together through this policy statement. The real kind of guts of it is this policy summary here. Let's hide the taskbar here and make it bigger. Anyway, so
You can use your magnet bottom right hand corner. You can increase the size.
I just got to hide this link.
Yeah, just hide it and then move that over. Yeah.
Okay, so I can read it. So, looking at a few other towns' debt policies, kind of looking at what the DLS had proposed to us, and looking at the new S&P model and what they look at from a debt and liabilities perspective. So now they call it debt and liabilities. It used to be 10%, now it's a 20% valuation. We kind of reevaluated the criteria. So a lot of towns will do basically debt as a percentage of expenditure. Some will do revenue. I thought, percentage of general fund revenue made more sense. I think people can get their head around that as basically debt to income. As people are familiar with their mortgage process. It excludes debt exclusion and self-supporting debt. Self-supporting debt is our CPA funds, our water enterprise fund, et cetera. Ones where the revenue goes directly to the debt. The next one is gross debt service. So it's inclusive of our debt exclusions, our overlapping debt, self-supporting debt. So kind of like an all-in over total governmental fund revenue, which is what the S&P uses, which kind of captures that CPA revenue, water revenue. So it's kind of an all-inclusive revenue figure for the town. So it's kind of the first one's kind of just the general fund with the debt exclusions and stuff taken out. The other one is like everything without the revenue. So as you can kind of get, it's similar, apples to apples. The next is state law that we can't go over the 5% equalized value without approval, and there's other things you could do there. But it also excludes MSBA projects from that calculation. Added with a goal of being under 2.5%, which we are well under today, and I think we could certainly stay at that point. I think it's roughly $120 million of total debt right now is our 2.5% there. So I think you're
still under that.
Oh yeah. I think we're right now at what, 30?
Yeah.
So we got a lot of room there just to get to the 2.5 and the 5.
So our is $3.8 billion, right? So 5% of that is 190 million, right? So that's our 5% that you're
Correct.
okay. All right, keep going.
And then the next two are basically directly out of the S&P calculation. So net direct outstanding debt per capita under 4,500. Right now we are just on so that's the next level of the calculation. So right now we are at, I think, a level number 4. Yeah, number 4 in there. So that goes 1 through 6, 1 being the best, 6 being the worst. Right now we are 4. We're between that 2,500 to 3,500, and we're kind of just on the cusp of the 3,500 on net pension or on debt outstanding. So kind of moved it over to the 5, that 4,500 hurdle.
And
that,
Andrew, the policies for other towns you looked at, do they include those two?
I haven't seen one, but again, they just rolled this out, this new S&P model in September.
Yeah, this is new. So a lot of towns have not adjusted yet for this policy.
Would you think this would? Is it
Yes,
decent
so
direction at least?
well, you're moving into, so 1 is the best, right?
Correct.
And 6 is
Worst.
the worst. And this debt gets you into,
This would get us into a 5.
the
instead
per
of a
capita.
3. Correct. The per capita hurts us, although S&P does have the
because of your
ability.
population.
They do
right?
have the ability to upgrade you
Yeah.
based upon your demographics if your population is too burdensome. Like if you have too many seasonal homes, right?
Mhm.
Your population isn't high, but you have a lot of properties, right?
Yeah,
So
they can make analytical adjustments.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and out of the S&P analysis done this January, our worst score, a 3, was our debt and liabilities. And it was only for these 2 per capita scores.
See, Tony, I have trouble with these two intellectually, and Andrew and I have talked about this. I just can't get my arms around why the number of people in a town, because, what if you got a town that's a ton of children, same in number of people, then you got a town that's full of old people. 2 really different towns, right?
Yeah.
Yet you still do the same computation. I
Yeah.
get the 5%. I get the trying to keep your debt service to a percent of your revenue. I'm having trouble with those last 2 as far as why they're
Yeah.
important.
So Nantucket has
Oh, sure.
10,000 people
Yep.
year-round.
Yep.
Yep.
So when S&P does the calculation, it's off the charts. And I'm like, whoa. You've got 36 billionaires that live on Nantucket.
Yep.
I said, you have to factor that in. They could pay the entire operating budget of the town with 1 check. I said, so I convinced them to do the analytics on that,
Correct.
that, I think it's the 3rd richest county in the entire country. So the number that it just blew it out, blew out the debt ratios and all that. And they ended up saying, yeah, you're right. Let's bring that back. And then you get a town like Bridgewater, where you've got, you've got the prison, you've got the students, there's a whole. And these places have their own policing and all that, but it's screwing with their calculations. So you have to make an analytical adjustment there, on the population. And, for years, Marlboro was, they finally got their AAA, but they were getting hit, but they didn't realize how many people come into Marlboro on a daily basis to work. I mean, it's enormous, the amount of people that are in Marlboro from 9 to 5. So they have to make these analytical adjustments. And so that in the end, they don't, like you're saying, it just doesn't make sense sometimes. And the S&P people that are looking at it, hopefully they see what you see, that, hey, this doesn't make sense. You know, the demographics don't make sense. Those ratios don't make sense, and they make those sorts of adjustments.
So the new model they're using right now, they use that in January. So this was part of that in January too?
Correct.
Okay. So Tony, would you get too excited about those last two that we were 4 or 5 versus as long as we're in great shape as far as our amount of debt compared to our value and our debt service ratio?
You know,
So that's the breakout, the new breakout. So it used to be 10% for debt and liabilities. Now it's 20%.
let's take a look. So
20% economy, 20% financial performance, 20% reserves and liquidity, and 20% management. So the debt and liabilities is 20%, and half of that is the first characteristic, the debt service to revenues. And then the other half is those the other two metrics, is 25% for each of those. So
Okay, so 10, so half of it is the first two or the first one?
first one,
First one.
that's
Okay, and then
50%.
what's,
The other two are 25s.
okay.
And the debt in places that have AAAs is, I mean, they're all building schools. Giant schools. 109 is nothing. I think Newton is doing 700 million or something. I said,
$2 billion high school is in the pipeline.
yeah, exactly. So 109 is nothing. So, in terms of, and so let me ask you this, because I haven't dug into this.
Yeah.
But, are there any positive enhances
So there's a few positive enhances for debt and liabilities. Let me
that
open-
help you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
okay.
one of them is like an 80% of it within 10 years. So if you front load your principal.
If you front load, you
Then
get
can
credit for
you
that.
A
Yep.
lot of towns get a half a point for
Mhm.
that, which helps. And there's a bunch of, and you know, for us, we get an extra point. That's why we go from a 1.5 to a 1, a AAA, because our equalized our per capita income is over a certain threshold. So that's just an automatic 1 extra point upgrade.
And do they have, like, if your pension assessment is less than a certain percentage of your expenditures, do you get an enhancer for that? Or you don't get punished for it? I think that's
Um,
what it used to be. Yeah, debt is tricky.
Yeah.
It's complicated. It's not as easy as we're doing the 10% thing we did earlier. You just divide this by this, is all different, like, things coming in on debt. But you've already been graded under this model,
Correct. And we still kept our AAA.
and you kept your AAA. And did they know, Brian, that you were planning this school?
Yes,
Because
they
you
did.
have to tell them about projects.
Yeah, it's in the report.
Yeah, so you told them you were planning the school.
Yes. Yeah. And actually what they have in there is the original number that was higher than what
So your debt profile was,
yeah, so it's up at the beginning, you'll see here,
where is it? That right there.
oh yeah, 81 million to construct an elementary school. So that was before we brought the cost down a little bit.
A lot.
But they obviously don't take it into consideration because it doesn't happen, but they, you know, kind of warn against that and OPEB as our two kind of,
Can you email that to me?
Yeah.
At some point so I can look at it?
hey, Brian. That's it.
Yeah, and I'll take a look at it. Might not be able to answer everything tonight, but I'll certainly be able to look at.
So Tony, we use a bond consultant who's been, he's very experienced, working with Brian for a long time. So Brian and I worked with him to model the debt on the new school, what it would look like, amortization, et cetera. And he said, well, he believes the worst case this debt might do to Southborough is lower the AAA to AA one notch down. And he said he thinks it's 10 basis points as far as interest rate goes.
Yeah.
So that's what his analysis was as far as what this debt.
Yeah, you are
It
not
might
going
be.
below a AA plus.
Yeah.
That will never happen. So the difference between a AA plus and a AAA is,
And that's what Algonquin is.
yeah. Yeah, AAA is, it's more of a, we got a AAA, you know, so you're at meetings, so we have a AAA. But the difference between the AA plus and the AAA is minuscule. And it all comes down to your investors. So when you do a prospectus, you do a bond prospectus, it's an SEC document, it gets floated and people bid on it. And I've seen AA plus communities get better grades than AAA because investors liked that community better and are basically saying, well, we think S&P got it wrong because we like this community better than this particular one that had a AAA. So that's the worst thing that's going to happen. I would think, when you told them about this big project, were they even phased?
No.
No, right? Because this is normal. This is normal.
Yeah,
This is a normal process in a town, is to build a building like this.
I'm
And
more interested if it was excluded, you know.
if it's excluded is very important. And so it may hit the ratios a little bit, but I think you're so strong in the other areas. Now, if for some reason, you know, we talked about that tier 2 on the ratios, say that slipped. Okay, and this slips. Now you're in an area where you may go to the AA plus.
So that middle section, which to me is what Andrew said, the guts of the policy. The rest of it just kind of flushes some of the details out. Tony, do you have any issue with what we're going to talk about as far as whether this is where we want to go with this? So we're going to try to maybe agree tonight that that is going to be the goal for our town is those ratios.
So email me that policy.
Yep.
And email me that document and
I'll send you the,
I'll do a
the
little-
new methodology.
I'll do a little homework on it and then I'll let Brian know.
That would be
I'll do
very,
that pretty quickly.
that would be great. That'd be great.
When is have you already you haven't gone to the ballot yet?
No, so May 10th is the actual town meeting vote where we need 2/3, and then May 13th is the ballot vote. to
Okay,
approve the
so it's
debt.
coming up fast.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, very fast.
So yeah, send that stuff to me. And who's your bond advisor?
Dave Eisenthal, Unibank.
Over at Unibank?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I can take a look at it. I'm not seeing a big problem right now in terms of what I see out there versus what you folks are doing. I'm not seeing a big problem, but let me take a look. You're also in a very, very nice area of the state. All the surrounding communities are AAA, a lot of them. And it's a good spot. They like this area. You go out by Athol, Winchendon, Phillipston, they have a tough time getting out of the A category, you know, on their debt, just because the bond raters don't like that area of the state. So geography is pretty important. That's what in
That's the first category.
the what is it called? MSA. You're in a
Correct.
metropolitan statistical area. You got proximity to Boston and Worcester. You know, so you've got 2 MSAs working for you. Do a lot of employees in this town travel to Boston? Like, is there a rail?
Yes, I mean, really, yeah.
So you got the commuter rail, which is important. So these are the things they look at, you know, once they've done their score, they look at all the other things that are going on. And, you know, how's growth in town? Is that pretty robust or is that stagnant?
Population is slow.
It's
Very steady, very slow. It's not growing much. Our
There's not much
commercial base is not big. It keeps
Yeah.
declining relative to the resident.
Yeah.
We're trying to do something about that, but that's not easy to do. So we'd like to see that increase, that ratio. But the debt right now we've got is low. So
it is.
all the school debt is paid off completely for the schools that are local. The high school's almost paid off in 2 years. So as far as timing goes, you know, I'm sorry that, you know, the country, the macro stuff is going on, but as far as where we are debt wise locally, it is a good time. The school absolutely has got, there's general agreement that the school's got to be dealt with. The school is
How old is the school?
53 years.
Yeah, it's got to be done.
Yeah.
And that's old. Did they talk about Worcester County pension in there? In that report at all? Because I've seen some of the Worcester communities get hurt because of that.
Didn't we talk last year about trying to get out of Worcester?
Yeah, and it doesn't look like that's a reasonable possibility.
To do your own system.
Yeah,
Or to do join somebody else's?
somebody else's system.
Move to Middlesex. again.
I think a lot of the surrounding
We're
communities.
kind of we're in it.
Change the
Mi-
county
mi-
line.
Middlesex is lower than Worcester, believe it or not. They're at like 48%.
Really?
Yeah, those two
But
counties.
Wellesley's got its own system, so they're not part of Middlesex?
Which,
Wellesley's in
Wellesley
Norfolk.
oh, they have their own retirement system.
Well, Wellesley's Norfolk or Middlesex? It's Norfolk.
Norfolk, I think.
Yeah, okay. so
Yeah,
forget
but plus they have their own retirement system. There's about 60 communities, I think, that have their own, 60 or 70 communities that just have their own.
But we're probably too small for.
I think you're
for
small
that.
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're small for that. There are some small ones, but they started back in the 1930s when all this happened. They decided they wanted their own and they still do.
So Andrew and Brian, do we want the next step, let Tony look at this and come back to us and then take it back up?
Yeah, that's not
Is
bad.
that okay with you?
Just
Okay.
double check it, make sure we
Yeah,
didn't miss anything.
double check it. I mean, this is sort of stuff I love. There's,
You can tell.
I know, I like, no, I mean, that you've got a guy that is actually doing this. And he's got he's got the S&P model out and
Oh,
he's
he does.
studying the S&P model.
Oh, no, he's good, believe me. He's
But
very
this is
good.
what I meant by the management of the town earlier.
Yeah.
I said, this is, I walk in, I don't even know this guy, and I walk in and he starts rifling off S&P regulations. And I'm like, all right, it's expected in this town, everyone's, you're all very qualified individuals. It's good. It's all good. This is great. I love this stuff.
And we're lucky to have Mr. Pfaff on the advisory committee for sure. He's done an amazing job as far as all the stuff we're about to go over too. So anyway, so is that it? Okay for the plan? Okay, let's let Tony have a chance to weigh
Do
in.
we want to, if anybody has any comments about it now, do we want to incorporate those into what we send to Tony?
We could-
I got a couple questions.
Okay, go
Kathy.
ahead, Andrew.
Okay, just some terminology. What's overlapping debt and what's self-supporting debt?
Let Brian answer that.
Self-supporting debt, Andrew, is things like water is the easiest way to understand, or CPA. Overlapping debt is like Assabet. Assabet has debt that they issue.
Okay,
assess
Algonquin.
Through us and the regional, yeah, Algonquin, things like that.
okay. And following the discussion there, it sounds like, we had some discussion about the last two bullet points on the debt limits about whether, the pros and cons of having a policy that includes these limits of, outstanding debt per capita. Are those things that those are in this policy because they were in the DLS kind of model policy, or something we have to do, or something we could consider taking out of this policy?
Those are not in the DLS. Those,
Okay.
as far as I know, there's not a town in Massachusetts that has that.
All
Those
right.
those are direct lines out of the S&P
Right.
model.
Okay.
That came out in September of 2024. So I don't think that anybody's really incorporated them, which is why, but S&P never really looked at NPL or net pension liabilities in the old model, or if they did, it was not as, important. And now they've obviously added some importance to that. So that's why I thought it would be good to add it.
But it's likely that will be included in towns.
I would think a
forward.
lot of
Yeah,
towns
yeah.
would start including that going forward, since it's going to be,
Okay. And I took a quick stab at, based on the financial statements here, trying to determine whether we currently are within these debt limits. I mean, it looks like we are, right?
yeah, let me,
Well within, Andrew.
I mean, the calculations I did, we were so well within them. I didn't know whether I was doing the calculations correctly.
yeah, so as of our last analysis, which is our 2024 numbers, because we haven't done 2025 uses 2024, we, for the first for S&P, right, the current cost of debt service and liabilities of revenue, which is basically the number 2 there because it's inclusive of all the other pieces and its total governmental revenues. We were at 3.14%. Right, so we're well below, the 14 there. And the way the S&P does it is it's less than 8 is 1 point, and that's where we are today. And then between 8 and 14 is 2 points. That's what kind of where the 14 came up. I want stay inside that 2.
Yep.
And then for the other one, net direct debt per capita, we are at 3,158 right now. And that kind of goes between 2,500 and 3,500. And then the next one is 3,500 to 4,500. And with, some of the debt that we're putting on right now, I thought it was prudent to increase that a little bit to give us a little bit of buffer.
Yeah. I mean, the net pension liability number is something where
Yep.
we just have less control over it because of the pension liability element that's controlled by Worcester County as opposed to us, you know?
And right now we're at 3,100. That goes up to 3,500 is that kind of tranche. And we've never been, it's the highest now that it's ever been, but 2022 we were at 2,400. So that, I'm hoping that we don't.
So the pension liability and the OPEB liability divided by population is now a
Correct.
metric.
So it's
which
25% of the
which
total, 20%
I
is
find-
those 2.
I find that amazing because the OPEB liability
Correct.
is so different
Right.
from community to community because of what actuary you use. It's not regulated by the state. You can use 7% discount rate, you can use 3%. It's a number that I could turn your 37 into like 85 if I wanted to. And just making different assumptions. I'm shocked that they actually put that in the calculation. So they've now created this significant importance on OPEB liabilities because they've got it in your debt profile.
Correct. And our
That's
number on
wild.
the last audit was 32.8 was our
Yeah.
NPL.
Yeah.
So Andrew, there's 2 sets of rules we're trying to make this policy conform to. One is the state, and the rule for the state, the law there says 5%. So that's the only law. The rest of the things that we got from the state are guidelines. So the law says you can't go over 5% of the value of your town, except for there's a bunch of exceptions, right? But that's a law. That's not a policy. That's not a recommendation. That's a law. The rest of those are the 10%, the 14%. Those are recommendations that most towns do. This S&P is new that we're trying to incorporate this into our debt policy to make sure we comply with both and keep everybody happy.
In a very real sense, the S&P is more important than the state.
So keep going, Al. So
Yeah.
why do you
So-
think that?
Pardon?
Why do you think that? I'm
Well,
not saying I disagree.
Because I do.
Bond rating.
If Andrew and I agree, then
Because of the bond rating.
because
The
they affect
state
our
doesn't-
costs far, the state's not going to,
Because of the bond rating.
because of the bond rating.
State's not going to cost us more in our bond
Yeah,
rating.
right. I've got a couple, I've read this statement. I got a couple, I'm a fiscal conservative, so I think this is too liberal, but we won't go into that.
We're not going to decide tonight.
I understand.
About it.
So, the 100K I think that's too low for debt and
The most
Care to
common
expand on
one I
that?
found was 100K for 10 years. And that was the mass majority of the towns had that one. Some towns had 30K, which I thought was too low. Others were like 175. So I just kind of met in the middle.
I would.
I don't know what's a hill to die on.
I would have.
Point is, it costs a lot of money to float a bond, and 100K would be pretty expensive. So I'm with you on that one.
Yeah,
But it doesn't say you have to do it. It just says you could do it.
I'm fine with making it larger, just kind of.
I would have said
And Brian,
250 would be, I
I
mean,
think the
100K
original-
is a police cruiser.
I think the original one from DLS was 175. So
So we can talk about that on
Yeah,
that one.
But with the auto tariffs, you're not going to be able to get a vehicle under 100,000.
Well,
At all.
No, except today, they took some more of the tariff. Anyway,
I do
We
think the
digress.
5-year,
Okay. Yeah.
because some towns are 10, I think 5 is to give us the option if we wanted to do a 7-year or something. I think 5
Yeah.
is fine, but I'm perfectly fine with the 175 or 200.
Yeah, that's one. The second thing, that sort of popped up at is, you're trying to create sort of two classes of the sources of debt funding, which is one is debt from the general fund and one is everything else. And I think you've got to include things like the CPA, and if we had a stormwater enterprise fund, stormwater enterprise, and the reason for that is that the CPA is, for all intents and purposes, indistinguishable from a property tax. It is a property tax. You know, it's an assessment. It's based on the value of some property, and you don't have a choice about paying it, and it comes on your real estate bill. You know, it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck. It's a property tax. I would have said that anything that is currently funded by the CPA should be counted again as part of the debt that is supported by either the general fund, and if you want to take the CPA monies and add in the CPA monies to the general fund, that would be fine. Same thing is true for a stormwater enterprise fund, which again it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck. It's an assessment, you don't have a choice, and it's based on some aspect of your property. So moving those things.
Would be included in the second one, because it's inclusive of self-supporting debt. So CPA and water would be included in the second. 14%.
Yeah, but right now, I don't think those are self-supporting debt. Those are not self-supporting debt. They are, for all intents and purposes, supported by the property tax.
I think, I
They're
disagree.
by
I
state
think you're right.
definition,
CPA, I think is arguable, but I don't think the water is. I think the water.
No, no, wait,
CPA is
arguable.
debt
Wait,
can
wait,
only
I
be
did-
issued based upon a percentage of your surtax, not even the match.
I mean, the state says self-supporting debt is separate
CPA.
enterprise funds and CPA. So the state says that. I hear the argument on CPA.
Well,
that was a little
I
bit gray.
didn't say water. I said if we had a stormwater enterprise fund. A stormwater enterprise fund is really no different than the CPA. It is an assessment. It is based on some aspect of your property. You don't get a choice, and it shows up on your property tax bill. So, you know, if you want to take the revenue from the stormwater enterprise fund and lump it together with the general fund for the ratio, for the perspective of ratios, that's fine. But I think the CPA, and if we had a stormwater enterprise fund or any other fund, essentially, if the assessment shows up on your property tax bill, they go together. That would be the next item.
But just to stay on that one, how is that different than the second bullet? That's exactly what.
Pardon?
The second bullet
The
there
second bullet
is
taking all that out.
CPA
That's what that
and
second bullet was
water,
for.
but the governmental fund revenue,
14%.
Yeah,
which is what you
you're
put
saying,
together, which is inclusive of general fund plus enterprise plus CPA. That's the calculation.
So Al, you think it should all be within the 10%? Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Okay, I can see what
Yeah.
you're saying. I see
Yeah,
what-
what I'm saying is, move the revenue over, so it's general fund plus CPA plus, if we had one, a stormwater enterprise fund, and take the debt that's associated with it and count it. So on the same side of the ledger, those would be the second thing. The last thing I want to caution the board, maximums become minimums. If we adopt the policy, what's going to happen, and my track record is pretty good on this, actually, we will now see that, we can borrow up to 10% in these categories, and we will always find a way to do that. So maximums tend to become the minimum debt that we sort of carry, and that is a risk. I would be much comfortabler with lower numbers, but I know I'm going to get outvoted 4-1 on this one. So
You should assume that. We go right ahead.
But so today, our current policy is 15%.
And we didn't use all that up. So I'm not saying I agree, but it's worth discussing. So why don't we take this back, all of us, right? Take a look at this. I think we now understand this is a piece to focus on, is this box right here. Let Tony take it, muse over it, get back to what his pearls of wisdom are, and then we'll put it back on. We're meeting a week from now. We'll put it back on.
What's the length, what's the maturity?
I will remind you that
Maturity at
of the Dennington policy, the Dennington bylaw.
30 year.
So if we adopt
30
this
years.
policy,
You're
we'll
gonna
have to
blow
publish it.
you're not gonna get
Yeah.
the enhanced.
If it's one of those, I've never been
That's
able
gone,
clear on which ones
80%.
qualify.
Correct.
10, which you're getting now. You're getting that now, so you're gonna
The
lose.
Dennington policy.
This would not apply, that would not apply to this.
The official word. I have one question.
Go ahead, Sam.
One thing that I didn't understand, below that table, the policy text paragraph, 2 paragraphs down, last sentence, the town will not issue debt obligations to construct, reconstruct, or purchase capital assets that can be acquired with current revenues. I found that confusing, I guess, because in one theory, you could say anything that is up to 65 million, 70 million of general revenue kind of thing. You are not going to issue debt for. At least that's the way I read it.
That was from the state. Yeah.
So that just didn't make sense to me. I would bag that sentence, I guess.
You said the state said that?
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't edit that.
I don't know what they're trying to get at there. Again, take a look. I found.
Yeah, I think it was, if you had the money and, the cash to pay for it, don't just bond it for the sake
If
of
you got a
bonding. it, but-
donation from St. Mark's School to
Right.
buy, something, you
Yeah.
use it and you don't go.
But again, I thought that this
Which one was
created
that?
a huge loophole there. This
All right,
party
so-
shouldn't fund this stuff. Anyway,
I wouldn't get too woozy over the state guidelines.
I'm not.
They're, when I looked at them the first time, it was painfully clear that they didn't play nicely together, except if you had very, very long maturities and very, very low interest rates.
Well, not only that, not everybody's the same. As we know in the state, we've got quite a big difference between towns. And so this one-stop shopping.
Ah.
I tried to find a white paper that really talked about why municipals should have a certain amount of debt, and I couldn't find it. There may be one out there, but I found lots of things that kind of did things on the edges, but nothing that just really got to the issue as far as how you look at yourself and what really is the right amount of debt.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I made two changes on the fly. I moved it from 100,000 to 200,000 and I deleted that line. I think that's a good edit.
Okay, all right, so you okay, Brian? Okay.
you're okay with that?
What?
You're okay with those changes?
You just changed to 200,
Yeah.
okay, and then you got rid of Sam's line.
Yeah.
So does everybody understand Mark is sick? That's why he's not saying anything. He can't, he's really got trouble with talking, so he can wave at us, but he's off the hook for talking.
Let's,
tonight.
let's take advantage of
Yeah.
it. What do we want to pass here?
Yeah. But he was part of this group too. That's why I'm saying this. Okay, so do we have a plan as far as what to do?
Yeah, so I'll make those changes. I'll send a copy to Brian.
Yeah.
Brian can send it.
Yeah,
to
so
Tony.
Tony, if you could look at this in the next
Yeah.
days, we've got another meeting a week from now. We could bring it back up.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'll
We're
definitely
ready.
look at it before.
Kathy?
Yes, sir?
Yes, so on the change you just made to the 200, right?
Yep.
There was scrolling pretty quickly. There's a similar bullet point in the first page of the policy, and did you also change
Yeah, so I
that?
did this one
We
up
changed
top.
it.
Okay,
Yeah, and then it just, that's a summary and then the pieces down here.
okay, and I think that's good because in a lot of our recent, budget sessions where we're driving to keep the overall tax rate under a certain number, at the last minute we have kind of looked at, oh, well, we could borrow for this, and this is something that would be
We
I
have
don't
a-
remember whether
We have
some of
bonded
it's-
or leased things in the last few years to try to get our tax increase.
Yeah.
You're down, so we have done that.
Well,
This
So it
will-
wouldn't affect leasing,
Doesn't cover
but
lease. Leasing is a whole separate.
Okay.
yeah.
That's not.
But I
debt.
think that's something that we can live with there.
The leases and debt?
I
leases.
don't know.
Gap call.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's dead.
gap.
Maybe Massachusetts. Okay, so we still have someone that's trying to join us, so can you bring her over again?
Hello.
Hi, Shelley, so we can hear you now.
Okay, good. I switched iPads. Shelley McNulty, 9 Killam Farm Lane. I had a question about the unfunded pension liability. In terms of the budget that was laid out and that's being used, in the projections to kind of tell us what our tax would be in fiscal 31 or whatnot. Within that budget, the annual required contribution that we need to pay towards the Worcester, unfunded pension liability, what is that like assuming? Is that assuming a 10-year getting fully funded? I guess I'm just trying to understand how much, how quickly are we paying down or amortizing the unfunded part of that liability versus like the normal cost? Thanks.
I think we should explain to you what's in that projection. You want to talk about what's in there as far as the pension expense and then what's in there as far as?
Benefits was a 5.5% overall forecast. And it's part of the, it's buried in, yeah, it's in the, it's also included in the same line item of it's the total benefits are included with the healthcare and
What did you assume for pension going up?
We've always assumed between 9 and 11.
10, yeah, 10 is a good.
Yeah, because they came out with a statement
10 is a good number.
that said, you plan on.
Okay, so let's make sure Shelley understands what we're saying. We're kind of talking to ourselves. So Shelley, in that projection that goes to fiscal year 32, there is embedded a assumed 10% increase in the annual contribution to the Worcester pension system. On top of that, the way we do OPEB is we basically pay as we go. As far as people who are retired today, we actually pay for their health insurance, et cetera. And then we also put in $250,000 into the OPEB trust. So that 250 is also in that projection for each year through fiscal year 32.
So is that the 10% increase in the annual required contribution on the pension side, that would get that pension system fully funded in line with the state's like deadline? Is that a correct
The state's
assumption?
Deadline is 2040. Worcester, I believe, is 2034. So Worcester is planning to fund it with 6 years earlier than the state deadline. But yeah, that's basically what that's attempting to do. It's attempting to say if we, and the actuary has said 10% is a good increase in assessment. And as long as we get our assumed rate of return on plan assets for the next 7 years, and we make this 10% increase in assessment, then you should be fully funded. You know,
What
and
is the assumed return on assets and what's the mix that you're assuming between equities and bonds
the
in our
7.5
portfolio?
is the assumed return on
I'm
assets.
sorry, what was that?
7.25.
Okay.
That's the assumed rate. And I believe it's a mix of 70 equity, 30 bonds, fixed income. So so the 7.25 is it's a little high. Most are in the 6s now because of the fixed income's dropped. But you know, Worcester has come down to 7.25. That was one of the other things with Worcester. They kept it at 7.75 for the longest period of time while everyone was reducing it. And it works inverse. So if you have a high discount rate, your assessment is less.
Right, yeah.
So that kind of caused some of the problems here with the 50%. And but that right now, that's the goal is if you can earn interest on your assets at 7.25 and you increase your assessment by 10% through 2034, theoretically you should be fully funded. But obviously we can't see 10 years out. So
Next meeting, May 6th, next Tuesday, we're going to have the actual discussion on this in detail. They couldn't come tonight, the actual pension and OPEB actuary. So they'll be here next Tuesday to go into this in even more detail.
Okay, great. And then just one more question on the OPEB so we put money towards OPEB. Are we meeting our normal cost when the amount that we're putting away, is that equivalent to the normal cost for OPEB? So that we're not accruing any more unfunded liability related to.
the normal cost is budgeted, right? Annually.
Yeah.
Oh,
Through your
yes.
normal cost is budgeted annually. So whatever your cost is for your retirees, that's budgeted annually. The amount that's being put away is the amount that's being contributed towards the unfunded OPEB liability.
Okay. Is that in an irrevocable trust so that we get to use a higher discount rate? Okay.
Yep. And that one is 6.8%. The discount rate. And it earned, I think about what, 9 or 10%?
No, it earned more than that. It went from 1.8, like 395 over 1.8, so 20-something%.
Are you talking fiscal 25?
How can, what's in your report? You've got this in your audit. No, this is fiscal year 24.
Let's look.
Or calendar year 20.
Let's put it on page.
You do, it's like,
You earned 12.11%. It's on page 52 in 24.
Tony, look at page 21.
Page 21. Yep.
So we had 1,860,000. Now we did put in 250, right? That's where we got the 645, but we earned $400,000.
You had three. And you earned 395, right?
Yep.
So you had 3,036,000.
All right, so 12, so you're right, 12. So I was doing,
Yeah, so 12.3.
so I looked at the previous year. Okay. So,
That's still a great return.
Not bad.
yep.
I mean, the history of the returns is on page 52 is the history of the returns, and you'll see there's one boo-boo there. 22 was a -13. But other than that, in 21, you earned 30%, in 23, you earned 8%, and in 24, you earned 12%. And then you had the one boo-boo in the middle, which everybody had.
Let's keep moving here.
All right.
And
Thank
then-
you, Shelley.
Sorry, can I just ask one more? Is the rating that we have at S&P, is the fact that we don't have like a stabilization account, rainy day fund, is that like a negative towards our credit rating at this point, or is
We
there
have been told,
expectation-
it's not, they don't look at just stabilization. We've been told this point blank. They look at a lot of things. We've got a big levy capacity on top of that. So we've got other things. They look at the broad, other reserves we have too. So it's not just the fact that we've got a stabilization that is $700,000. So there's other things they look at to determine whether they think we've got the capacity to assess enough tax to pay our bills.
Got it. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And that is one area, if you think this debt thing is gonna cause some slippage, one area that you can manage is your reserves, because you do have capacity. So you could put more into stabilization if you felt, that it was gonna be a problem. So when I go through the math and talk to some of the folks out there that I know, we'll see if this is good. I don't think it's gonna be. I don't think it's gonna be an issue, but if something jumps out, I'll let you guys know. And then you can manage other areas of your score to kind of balance it out.
Good.
Okay. So anybody have any other questions for Tony? Thank you, Tony, for driving all the way here.
It's nice.
Seriously, no, this is,
It was nice to get out.
this is a good team.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a really, you guys are fortunate. If one of these folks were to leave, it's nearly impossible to hire anyone that's really can bring.
Don't advertise that.
So Tony, I'm talking about you too. Yours, from what we had before to what we have now is a market improvement. Let me just say that. So I'm talking about you. You're part of this team.
The first meeting I was gonna have with you guys, Carla said, they're tough. Be prepared. And I laughed at her. I said, Carla, come on, I've been doing this for 40 years. It can't be that scary.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we are tough. Can you tell?
No, you're a good group. I love talking to folks that know this stuff. Finance people, they understand it. When when I do these meetings and people are just staring into space, it's just,
I know.
this is great.
We look forward to this. So thank you.
It's good. It's good. And if Linda was here, it would be even better because she gets into the whole
Yeah.
thing too. We'd be here till midnight, but she gets into the, I'm glad we did it on separate days.
Break it up a little bit. Okay. So thank you.
All right, you're welcome
Thank you.
and good luck and send me all that stuff and we will advise. All right, thanks, guys.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
We're doing.
You guys can't leave.
No, they're going to be here for a while. Okay, so the next topic is, we're back to Andrew again. So Andrew has done
And Brian.
and Brian, have done a really deep dive into the estimated consequences of the Neary project on town tax bills, et cetera, for the next 7 years. He's actually even gone further. He's got a rev cap that goes out to what, 58? So he's done a lot. He has truly.
It's dragged out. The accuracy is.
He has spent hours and hours and hours on this. So he is going to show us where he's ended up here.
Sure.
And I've got this hard copy if anybody wants to see it. Anybody want to crank around? You got yours? There's way two there. Okay.
I don't know where this system thing is here.
No, he says, so he was.
I don't know how to make that go away. Anyway.
I know, I don't wanna-
So I did work with Brian. So Brian did the original 2032 forecast when we started this process. So I basically took that. We double checked the growth rates, worked with Becky Pellegrino in the superintendent's office to come up with a forecast for the schools, and then a forecast for the schools, assuming we move to a 4-grade school and close the school, what are the operational savings for that? I can go down to the bottom. That's probably the most important thing is the actual assumptions. And I also ran this by Mr. Sabelli in terms of our new growth, our assessed value calculations and our single family parcel calculations. For the EQV and the assessed value calculations, I have that forecasted out for about 60 years. For the next fiscal year, I got some figures from Paul in terms of what he anticipates is going to be. Obviously, he hasn't finished all of his assessments for the year, but he had some good guidance percentages for that. And then the next 5 years, I used the Fannie Mae economist survey. So they send out basically a survey of what various economists, I think there's about 100 of them, think the next 5 years housing market is going to be. I took the average of that for the next 5 years. It roughly is about 3.8% on average. And then I used a different economist that what they would estimate it for commercial real estate, which is about a 2.18% increase. And then personal property, I used a 3% increase, which is basically a conservative estimate of the last few years. I can go through. Free cash was a slight increase. It's still pretty low, right? I think that's very conservative here. The whole point of this was to basically make it as conservative as possible in terms of what the effect would be on an average single family home. So the split and the migration and shift from commercial to residential or CIP to residential is growing. So, and the shift within the residential class of non-single family to single family is also growing. So basically it's, as this goes along, it's shifting more and more burden to the single family homes, which has been the trend. That I wanted to continue to make sure that we were being as conservative as we could. Overlay, 1% increase, again, very conservative. Local receipts, state charges, 2%, again, conservative. The budgets, public safety was a 4.75% based upon the new CBA, and all this came from Mr. Ballantyne. Other budgets are 4.25 to 4.5. The school budget came directly from the schools. And again, they incorporated the 9 FTE reduction savings for combining schools. The capital articles, we baseline with talking with Mr. Malinowski from CIPC, basically a 5% increase on how much we spend every year. On top of that, we included, with the help of Mr. Hamilton, 2 $5 million road sidewalk bonds, which in talking with Mr. Cundiff of DPW, he agreed that if we did those size bonds, removing the $400K annual road maintenance fund could be done. We would still have our Chapter 90 funds and the additional that we get from the millionaire's tax. But basically the acceleration and doing stuff with a bond would basically alleviate that kind of that additional annual cost of the 400,000. Liability insurance is 8%. Basically, it's an average history. Debt service, again, we can go through the full table of items, but we did add a couple that weren't on the capital plan. We added a library in 2034 or 2032, sorry. And what else do we have in there? Atwood cleanup and some. I don't think that
The roads were, so it's
the
the
roads.
three.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the big 3 things. And the debts there for the 30-year bonds was for Neary was 4.25. We used a 3.5% bond anticipation note percentage, and that's the basic gist there. Happy to go through, each and every line item, but this is basically the total government. Again, there's a 4.5% increase in here, which again is probably at or a little bit above what it has been historical. So I think we are being, conservative with that approach. Here is the actual list of projects we use for the debt service. For anything new, we used a 5% interest rate, again, to be conservative. And then, so this is the Neary scenario. We did another scenario, basically the no to Neary, which is basically the same assumptions. Actually, let me go to the bottom because that has the delta between the two. The difference in assumptions, basically, the yes one has the FTE reduction, the no does not. The capital articles, we included, I think it's roughly about $5 million total in, deferred maintenance that we've had on the capital plan, and the Vertex kind of building assessment plan that they had done in 2021. Small maintenance items and things like that.
Things that you have to do
Things
to
that you
keep
have to
that
do to
building
keep that
open.
building open that we should have done a couple years ago that we've been putting on hold. Here are the new capital items that we added in terms of capital articles, not debt service. And again, you can see a lot of these are small, wall hung urinal for $25,000 dollars for all the urinal upgrades, just smaller things. And then, the differences in debt service, obviously there's the $67 million to the new Neary school. And the reason why people aren't seeing that usual 68 number is because the other piece is the debt for the feasibility study, which has already been approved, and we've already done that. I don't think we've issued the bond yet, right? No. So that will come anyway. That's in both scenarios. And then the second one is $3 million, which is an estimate from Mr. Parent in terms of what it would cost to move some of the town offices. Well, you guys will talk later in this meeting about what the plan is for Finn, but move some of the town offices from Corderville Hall and South Union to Finn, renovate those to, put up some cubicles or whatever we need to do to make it into an office. And then when the people move out of Corderville Hall's lower level, add a lift there so that the seniors can use the lower level and do some light renovations down there to do whatever they need there. And then obviously in the second one, the bigger debt service for the actual school is the roof replacement. I packaged up any of the debt of the projects that are over 50,000 into a little package of debt service, $2 million roughly, and you can see what's in there, but acoustical tiles, cabinetry, some of this kind of stuff there. Again, this is all from the 2001 Vertex report. And then I took from the 2001 ADA report as well that looked at all the town buildings. They had a number in there of about $1,500,000 or $1.05 million for ADA compliance at Neary. And that was, so I adjusted that for inflation to about 1.3 million. I'm not sure that's all encompassing of everything that we would need to do to ADA. It was a little bit difficult to see in there if every bathroom was upgraded to being ADA compliant or just the mandatory ones that you would need to have enough in the building. But I kept it as a conservative number there. Because I think, that's an important feature for $1 million. Let's make it ADA compliant if we're going to hold on to it for a significant future. And basically that's the difference between the two scenarios. And then at the bottom, you can kind of see the difference between the debt service and interest between the two. And if we go back here, here's the average single family tax bill difference. And is about $600 between the two scenarios. And here you can kind of see where, obviously this is the difference between one and the other. One has Neary debt, one doesn't. And then, the budget articles and the debt and the interest, that's that Neary debt. The capital articles, again, that's things we would need to do to Neary to keep it open. And then the school budget is that operational saves. That's the basic difference between the two scenarios.
So he did all that. Brian looked at it. It's been looked at pretty close. Capital was not directly involved because we didn't have time, but capital, we talked to Jason. He knew what we're doing. I told him we were probably stepping all over his toes. He said, fine, understanding why we were trying to get this done. So he knows what we did. Bill Cundiff did weigh in on this as far as what the capital plan looks like from his perspective. He vouched for it. So then we took that and we said, okay, we got a $957,000 house value right now. Let's show people what their house value, if it was their house, what the impact to their taxes were going to be. So we then engaged, so Andrew, we
Can I
engaged
put that one up?
Mr. Litt to help us put together what we're calling the calculator, to let everybody put their own house in there to see what the impact of this project would be on their taxes each year between fiscal year 26 and 32.
Here's the calculator here. Figured might as well use myself as a guinea pig. I could do anybody else's that we want to see. But basically you can go in here, you can type it in by address, by owner, account ID, or parcel ID. And big thanks to Tim Litt for all the work he did on this. The numbers that are in here, I calculated. I did a per parcel assessed value increase. Again, as we increase different categories, I use that same growth rate by the different use codes to increase the current FY 25 assessed values. Then using those assessed values and the tax rates I calculated above and or in the other formula, in the other sheet with the two scenarios, was able to calculate an estimated tax bill, not inclusive of CPA, so just the regular general fund tax. In that no scenario, yes scenario, and then the net Neary contribution. And then from there, you can go in and if you click the detailed budget, it'll bring up that PDF we just saw. And then the primary website would take you to the Neary Building Committee website.
So Andrew, all someone has to do is type in either their address or their name. Those first two, the other two, they probably wouldn't have as readily available, and this populates automatically.
Correct. And if you have multiple parcels, it will create another one there. If you click the little print, it'll open up a PDF version that's easy to print or save down. Yeah, that's what we've been up to.
Looks very slick. Thank you.
Good.
Thanks. There's
Kathy?
another simplified calculator that we did, which uses the same percentages, but it allows people to just type in an assessed value. This is more mobile friendly kind of a thing. But it's the same kind of gist and calculations.
So can you go back to your computation?
Yep.
What's yours? Okay, so to me, this is the important question. I actually wish Tony had stayed for this piece of it. Okay, so look at Andrew's taxes, projected taxes for fiscal year 32 with the yes vote. So 21,121, right? Of that 21,121, we believe that $603 of that is related to the new Neary building. 603 is what, 2.5%, if I'm doing the math. So 21 times 3% of 21,121. So the question is, do you think, I would say in my accounting world, and that's why I wish Tony were here, that, and this is a real concept, that 603 is immaterial to the 21. The 21 is not immaterial. It's a significant portion of everyone's budget, no doubt about it. But the 603 has come down from over 1,200 since we started doing the work, as far as reducing the cost, increasing the state contribution, which is now $35 million. So that's where we are. So this is to let people, instead of looking at average house, look at their own house, and then they can make their own determination what they think about that $603.
Yeah, and so if the yes scenario, it's about a 47% increase, over those 7 years. And then if you look at the no, it's about a 45% increase.
So the no assumes that we keep Neary in the mix.
Right.
And renovate Neary.
Yeah, but be careful, Al. This is where this is concerned.
Yeah.
This is really important. Not really renovate it, just truly do the basic stuff that Vertex said had to be done to keep it open. So it's not the base repair that we looked at.
Understood.
That was $50 million.
They
This
keep
is
the,
truly spending
Keep the
$5
lights
million.
on,
Just to,
keep the roof from
as a,
leaking.
okay, and sort of as opposed to, operating in a 3-school configuration with the existing buildings. And, as I've talked to people about this, I've said, were we to go to 3 schools, we are still going to have to spend some money to configure those schools
that's
to be a grade appropriate,
Correct.
And I don't know what that number is, but
But it's a number.
it is a number. There's no question about it. I don't think, well,
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because again, that wasn't really a scenario. The one
Well-
scenario that's closest is Woodward did have an ad reno scenario of a 405 students, so basically a 3-grade configuration. And again, I'm not sure, if that we're talking apples to apples and apples to oranges, but I think that was about $100 million renovation at the time. I mean, obviously we've been able to get a little bit more of a reimbursement and do things like that, but that was one of the options that came out of that.
Okay, Marguerite, do you have any questions about Andrew and Brian's?
No, can you just state if a resident wants to use that calculator, how they get to it?
There'll be a link on the project website. I'm waiting for one little bit of technical update.
No, Mike.
That's
Andrew.
I'll say it for Tim. So
Okay.
what Tim was saying is, so this is right now on Tim's, it'll be migrated over to the Neary Building Committee website. And you can find the link there. We just need to have our webmaster and Tim get together for a few minutes and make that connection happen, but it will be available on the website. The other simplified one that I showed where you have to type in your own assessed value, but it does have a link to Mr. Sabelli's list of assessed values. That one is live right now and you can go in and actually type in your numbers. It's just going to show you FY31, which is the highest debt service. So that's the worst case scenario. It also has a calculation in there, which is the total 33-year impact of the project.
Okay, just
So Marguerite, it's nearybuilding.com.
All right.
That's where you go.
building.com, everyone. The other thing, is it possible to get it up on Southborough Share and Care and onto my
Yep.
Southborough?
Once we get the link up, I'm planning to post it on Facebook and my Southborough, I believe.
My Southborough's coming first, so there's gonna be a big, there's a letter that we've approved, the committee's approved to go on my Southborough with all the links in it.
Good.
That goes first. Then the finance committee is gonna do a separate letter right after that. Then there's gonna be a site and then there's gonna be an educational one. So it's gonna be like 4 letters in my Southborough, boom, 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 but the links will be there to use that to get to it. I'm not sure about Southborough Care and Share if, or
Facebook.
Facebook,
Yeah,
okay.
I've already told people I'll post the link once it gets up on.
Thank you, and thank you, Tim. I'm sure this will help clarify for a lot of people.
And maybe tomorrow, getting up on the website.
Yeah, Tim's working on it. There's just a glitch with
Yeah.
GoDaddy, so they're trying to,
Yeah.
they've had to put a ticket in to get it done.
Andrew, just out of curiosity, and the one you had up there previously that you type your number.
Yep.
What do you get when you put 600,000 valuation in there?
We-
I-
5%.
There you go.
Out of curiosity, 380.
382.
Yep. And again, Tim did a great job as well as we looked through basically all the assessed values, and did a whole statistical analysis looking at, what is it like within one standard deviation? What level would that be? We're going to add to our presentation. We always use assessed or average single family value. We're going to use median as well because it's a little bit
Good.
lower, a little bit more accurate. There's some outliers that are kind of skewing the average.
We think median is really a better metric because of what it means. It's in the middle. The mean, because of all the high-end houses in Southborough skew that. So we think median is really a better number anyway. The state uses mean instead of median, so we've always used average, but we do think median is really a better.
We
mean
show
is the
both ways.
lazy thing to do, and median is clearly the
Harder.
superior in this case.
What is the median value?
Hold
800.
on.
I think it's like 850.
Let me pull up my giant.
And then what happens when you do 850?
The current median right now is 868,500 and the FY32 is 1.12.
Put 868 in this on the screen here. see.
Yeah, and just so the for FY32, the median is 1.121 and the average is 1.236. So it's usually around $100,000 difference, but let me put 868 into the calculator for you.
All right, so do the median.
So it's about a 553 impact of the project in FY31 and a total cost over the 33 years of about 14,000. Because you got to just be careful of taking the worst case scenario year and multiplying it by 30. Yeah, it's not exactly the right way to.
Thank you.
Yep.
It actually gets better, Sam, as you go out because the debt service stays flat, right?
Right.
In inflation, debt gets cheaper and cheaper. And then the savings from the school operations
Right.
goes up because, you're getting big salary increases, big benefits. So that delta narrows as the time goes on. So it actually gets better as far as the.
Yeah,
impact.
and I kept that kind of the FTE save growth pretty conservative in terms of what the actual growth rate, I think it was 3.85%, which is pretty low, and that it's inclusive of benefits. I didn't want to be overly excited about that. But when you think about it from a real cost perspective, on a 30-year project, there's going to be people that would have, retired, we would have had OPEB liability. So it's and to be honest, I was very much in I want a 2-grade school. The cost is too much between a 2 and a 4 grade. I don't really see at the very end, I was convinced for a 4-grade school. After the operational saves, going to a 3 school configuration and the operational saves, the difference between a 2-grade school and a 4-grade school with the operational saves is significant. It basically pays for itself.
So say that again. Say that, make sure that really comes home what you just said. 'Cause I was in the same boat. I was going to do 2-grade, but
I don't know if I have the calculator open, but so I think that the benefit of the operational saves, I believe, is $68 million over that 33-year period, right?
what you don't get with the 2-grade.
Which you
school.
don't get with the 2-grade, right? And the difference in cost between the 2-grade and the 4-grade, I want to say, was $30 million, right? So the net benefit is there to go from a 2 to a 4.
And then you get all the educational benefits with the 4-grade.
And to play devil's advocate, there are other 3 school configuration options that are not on the table right now, but for what we have, that's why.
Yeah, the reality is if the operational savings are real, they're worth about $17 million in terms of you take the operational savings and you,
Present value them.
present value.
Oh, present value. Okay. Yeah, I was saying over the 33 years.
Yeah, no, that money would fund about $17 million worth of borrowing for 30 years,
That's not trivial.
if you believe they're real.
Okay, Marguerite, anything else you want to ask? Andrew?
I'm good. I was able to access the website. I put in my information. Right now, if you go to this Neary lits.us, the password is
Right.
required.
It's
So I
still in
understand.
beta right now, so
Yeah.
only a couple of us have access. But
I mean-
once it's up on the website, the password will be removed.
Understood. Okay, thanks.
Sam?
I'm good. Good work. Thank you. Very helpful.
Al, anything else?
Nope.
So I think Tim Fling wants to come over.
Hi all, Tim Fling, 18 Main Street. Andrew, quick question for you. Just I wanted to make sure I got all what you said was covered in the know. You said that was the capital items before. What exactly did that no number entail?
For capital items?
Oh, just in general. You the no number that you showed, I just wanted to make sure I heard all the details of what's in that.
Yeah, so on the site, there's a whole yes versus no section. So when you get to there's capital articles, right? Again, that's just cash that hits the general fund and it hits it in that capital articles line here under town. And the full list of them is in here, cut and patch deteriorated asphalt area, you can go through the whole list here. So it's mostly smaller things. And then when you get to the actual debt service items, here I kind of packaged up anything over $50,000 into one kind of package of things. And these are things over $50,000 that were supposed to have been done up to this point or in FY27. So it's basically like, this is stuff we should have done already, combine it into one thing, do a big project to get it done. And then, I think I did it over, I can't remember what it was. I want to say 10 years.
And they didn't because we thought we were going to have this project.
Correct,
So they
yeah.
didn't want
And
to do
that
it.
was,
So they may knock the building down.
Yep. And that basically the idea is we're not going to do any of this because we thought we might close the school. So if we're not going to close it, accelerate what we should have done and kind of put it in the package. Again, we could debate whether or not we need to replace the wood cabinetry and with sinks in the classrooms or not, but I thought there was a report saying that all this should be done by this point. Use it as a proxy. Again, all this would have to go through town meeting for approval, but I wanted to at least put something in there to show that we still needed to do some things to Neary just to keep the lights on. We're not doing a full base repair, which is about $40 million. For the construction costs, it would be about 60 million with the different pieces and about a $38 million net to the town.
And Andrew, this covers ADA compliance in that line as well. So
yeah,
it would
that's the
also
ADA,
include
Neary
that.
ADA compliance adjusted to inflation to 1.3 million. That again, the 1047225 number came from the 2001 ADA report from, I want to say it was Beta Consulting Group. That's the number they came up with. And I just carried that forward again.
So Tim, if you go to nearybuilding.com and hit the finance tab, you'll see all this.
Okay, perfect. And Andrew, what was like the total number? I think it was 5 or 6 million of all that
Yeah,
together.
that sounds about right. Everything added together, because this was 2, this was 1.3, and I think the roof replacement is like 1.4, 1.5. And then it was whatever the number is over here, total 1.3, so 1.4, 1.3, 27, and 2, so call it 4, 7, 1, 3, 6 million maybe, roughly.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Oh, that's it.
All right, so everybody happy with this one? Okay, for the moment?
Very happy.
Okay, so I'm going to switch next to so that Brian and Carla can go home earlier than they might otherwise. So let's do your Q3 report, then we'll do discussion of Fin. Is that okay?
Works for me.
I stop sharing.
So you want to come on up, Carla? Come back? So everybody's got their Q3 financial report in their package.
I have one more question. Could you just explain why they're from fiscal 27 on, you have 0 for debt and interest in your budget projections? Yeah.
Just shut it.
Oh, it's all carried in one
line.
Okay.
It's all in. It's because that's the school side. I just put everything in one.
I'm sorry, where did you put it?
It's debt interest. But it's all under this 8 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
it's just
All right.
that.
Under the town side.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, you're back on.
Okay, this is our quarterly report. This is through March 31st, so a little more recent than for Tony going over the FY24 results, a little more recent. So as usual, we'll probably move right along, and if you have questions, that's great, but we'll hit the high points and see if you have any further questions. So we'll just chime in as necessary, but the general fund totals, and by general fund, I do mean primarily local receipts. We're gonna change that title next time. It's not really general fund total.
That's my question today.
So yeah, Carla
It's a good
mentioned that to me,
Good
and
question.
she's right. Yeah, so it's really local receipts, but they're running very well. We're waiting for sort of a dip in this, and so far we haven't seen it. It's about a little over $700,000. Again, we'll put the usual cautionary notes out there that 200,000 of that is miscellaneous revenue, which miscellaneous revenue is miscellaneous things. IOD payments, all sorts of odd prior refunds,
Yep,
bizarre things like that.
we got a $70,000 light rebate from National Grid. So that's obviously
The LED
a
lights.
huge number, right? When John upgraded the lights.
Right.
And this year, we're seeing, we have a lot of IOD folks out on fire. And last year, we had IOD folks out as well, but we had vacant positions. This year, we don't have vacant positions. So it's a little bit different of a situation, but we have, of that miscellaneous revenue, over 100,000 is for IOD, which unfortunately can't go back to the budget. It has to go to the miscellaneous revenue. But I sent out a memo last week from Chief Puntini that he may need a reserve fund transfer, but the money that we're getting from IOD can't go back to the budget. It's kind of, we'll get it in free cash. So that is driving that local receipts number up.
So again, and it's probably similar from the last quarter, the motor vehicle excise tax, investment income that Tony mentioned. And the two little bit different things, the building permits, because those can be from year to year, and police detail had quite a bit of growth this year. We get a 10% fee when we bill out police details for administrative costs. That's just general fund revenue. And that's way up this year. So again, I mentioned the cautionary note, the water, we're always talking about water and concerned about that. Have increased over $500,000, which is good news. We're coming into the key summer months, not too far, July through September, June through September, somewhere around there.
I have a question on that. I mean, do we seasonally adjust the revenue figures, or is it just straight line?
We adjusted the fees. You guys voted
The
that.
water receipts?
Yes.
Yes, yep.
Yeah.
Straight line or seasonally adjusted?
No, it's based on seasonality.
Well, this is actual revenue.
No, understood. Understood.
Right, but when we set the budget, it's based on the usage.
That we
Takes into account the
anticipate.
seasons, I
Yeah,
guess I'm
that
trying
we
to say.
anticipate. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. But the increase is not up in the summer, like the rates are the rates for the fiscal year.
Yeah, the rates are
But
set.
it doesn't fall in line with the July
Right.
July to June.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good question. Al.
Is the rocket launch picture supposed to symbolize our
Yeah.
cost or
That was
what?
Brian. That was Brian.
That's revenues taking off. Let's
He picks
hope.
the pictures.
So we're, interestingly enough, right now, well, as of 31st, we're only $155,000 short of our total projection for this year. So that obviously was probably exceeded, maybe even exceeded by now. So we're doing well. I mean, it's good news. It's just straightforward good news. So the expenses, and Carla can jump in whenever she wants. For the most part, smaller, I won't say immaterial, but fairly immaterial things that we may need to deal with at the end of the year. The end of the year is sort of coming up. So as you know, we will have depending on what we do, we'll have either reserve fund transfers or interdepartmental transfers
Right.
by the end of the year, or sometimes right around the end of the year. So look forward to that. That will definitely happen.
Yeah, we're looking at fire may, due to the IODs have a transfer, maybe we're looking between 65 and 80,000. We're hoping it's on the lower end, but Chief Puntini's, eyeing that and doing what he can to save where he can. And then at the town clerk, he's working on the numbers, but his expenses are higher this year due to town meeting and the special town meeting. So I don't have final figures yet, but he's anticipating something. He'll have some savings due to salary savings in his department, but I don't know if that's going to cover it. So just so we're all on the same page about that.
He's got 2 special town meetings in this year. Not just
Yes.
one, he's got 2.
Right. Right.
In speaking with the clerk, I mean, the one at Algonquin is going to be quite expensive. I think he's been north of $50,000.
Well, not anymore because clickers aren't going to be used. So he's going to save 14 for that, but it's still going to be a lot
Yeah.
compared to what we're used to. It is still going to be expensive.
Yes, I think the fire, the clerk, the bigger ones, the rest are fairly, like I said, probably small things that we may have to deal with. Benefits, I do not know yet. I'll know probably starting this month. I'll start getting a picture of where we're gonna end up at the end of the year. I'm a little nervous of that one every year, but because of the retiree price, the Aetna increase that we didn't expect as of January 1st, that put a kink into the year, so I don't know if we're gonna be able to absorb it or not, but I will know probably in 2 to 4 weeks. I'll have somewhat of a good idea. So those are the things we need to watch out for. Hopefully, there's nothing else that crops up. We're not aware of anything.
Not aware of
But-
anything. No.
We'll
No.
keep the board informed. if
And the
there's
good news is there's been no reserve fund transfers voted as of yet. So we're still intact for the moment, you know, with
Yeah.
that. So
So that's good.
that's a good thing. Focusing on the positive.
You do this one.
Oh,
Fun.
ARPA, yes, yep. Actually, we just had another federal report that was filed this week, for ARPA. It's an annual report. But we are, clicking away. Everybody, was responsive and we were able to encumber everything for 12/31. We're down to just 11 projects that are out there out of 52. So that's pretty good.
We don't expect any problems with those 11 in terms of getting the money spent.
I don't believe so. I was gonna give them a little break, but now that, you know, after town meeting, I'm gonna get back on them, you know?
Yeah.
Everything's encumbered, so, we have contracts locked down, so, and one of the things is the back parking lot, which is shaping up quite nicely, so,
Yes.
Good.
yeah, that should be done, very shortly, probably by mid-May.
You know, it might be interesting to publish a list of those 52 projects. I bet most people don't know what they are, so maybe
Mm.
one of Mark's
Mm.
heard on the street letters, not enough space in there.
Yeah,
That's a good
Or-
idea.
or
certainly.
Put it on the
Yep.
front page of the, or put on the front page of the website saying, here's what our ARPA money has done for the
Yep.
town.
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yep,
And we
that's
spent every penny of it.
easy to do. I'll pass
Yeah.
that along to Mark for sure. Yep,
He's listening.
yep, yes. Am I listening, Mark? Yeah. Okay, got it? All right.
Can't speak. He's listening.
In FEMA, I feel like it's the same update all the time, but we have one final claim. I filed it back in May. And I keep checking once a month. How are we looking? What are we doing? We did sign the contracts. Brian signed the contracts and got it mailed back to FEMA right before the president decided to say, well, we're going to put a hold on everything, but they are trying to expedite it. I talked to them today because I was just saying, you know, did you get our contract? Anything we need to do? And our contract was sent in January. So it's just time. They just, you know, it takes time. The last claim, it took 18 months to get through. This one, I'm hoping we can get it by the end of the year and get that amount written off. So, or covered, not written off, but, yeah, since 2021, we received $670,000 from FEMA, so that's a positive, closer to the end than the beginning.
Hopefully you can see this. This was a little trick
Mm.
trying to make this readable, but I thought it was worth it because of the sunny vibes it gives off. So the town audit, and I forgot to poke Tony about this and talk about why it's, why it was delayed again. But there's a number of reasons why it's delayed, but I think he would have said, with the new, there's a lot of new requirements for GASB and the reporting and all that, and some of it's dependent on Worcester Regional, some of it's dependent on Linda's information, so he's depending on various other you know, points of information that may be delayed, so it's not easy anymore like it used to be. But we are gonna try to keep trying to get that time frame down a little bit, because it is stretched out a little long now.
Mhm.
So the audit, obviously, tonight was done, the OPEB next week, we'll listen to Linda, that should be interesting. Again, you're probably sick of hearing this because we just hear it tonight, but Neary, possibly Finn, voted pretty soon, library, everyone knows, we're not moving forward for a bit now on that, so. that's that. This, you will be hearing from me, probably in June, because the Neary schematic design money and the CPC for the townhouse, comes up for renewal in June. So we'll have to decide what we're gonna do with that. We don't have definite, it might depend on what happens with the Neary vote. So I've got to get John to give me a final cost for the CPC. I think the board's aware of that, and certainly CPC is aware that we're going to be under budget, which is good for that project, a couple $100,000, it looks like.
We're here, the windows.
Yes. So we'll get that, we'll get a solid number from that. And then, we'll see how
Are they
quick,
gonna close that one out? Because that's a lot of money to go back, right?
So we're not gonna borrow all of it,
Okay, so that's.
which
right,
is
so
good.
They want, that's.
We're gonna borrow just what we need. Yeah, so we shouldn't have a big overage. We do have the, the preservation restriction
oh,
that
yes.
CPC is looking to do. I'm not sure exactly the holdup with that, but we have money from the library and we have money that we need to set aside for this, for the preservation restriction, but.
But haven't they still assumed it was gonna cost whatever they allocated? So they've at least got a schedule that says, when they're trying to determine what they can bond going forward, they still have that wrapped in there, right? So it still would give them the ability to bond more going forward,
In the
right?
future, yes.
For CPC, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yep. Right.
So the, obviously the last few things of what we did, several weeks ago with mostly DPW with the culverts and everything. I don't have, I'm not sure Bill knows yet exactly the timing on that, but depending on the timing of that, you may see me for that too, to get Bill some cash so we can do those projects. And then, like I said, once Neary is decided, either yay or nay, we'll work out some financing plans for the rest of the year. And then just a reminder, we've already said it, but the 10th and the 13th, hopefully the residents can attend the special town meeting and the town election. That's that.
So one thing I think that's important to bring up now, because I don't know if anything's happened since annual town meeting to make you know that we need to do something in the fall as far as money goes, as far as budget goes.
Mhm.
But the plan right now is to have the fall special town meeting later than usual. Now, Paul Sabelli is well aware of this. He was part of the meeting where it was discussed. Because there's some zoning changes that may be brought forth, and the planning board needs time to get those done, do their hearings, get them all set up. They're on board with this too. So we talked about maybe November having the special town meeting, which means no budget stuff can happen. He's gonna be done at that point with his tax rate setting, or his classification hearing. So keep that in mind if something comes up that you would have planned to have put on that special town meeting money wise.
That's a very great point. Yes, because November would be
Too late.
Yeah.
a little too late, yes.
Yeah.
So,
There is one item, which is, we are applying for one-stop grants for wastewater, and those typically look for a
Amanda?
local community match on the order of 25%.
Mm.
So that is something that might come up in this time frame, because my understanding is that we would have to commit the funds by the end of fiscal 26. So we're gonna have to figure that
So
out.
we'll just have to get it all figured out. If we were to be lucky enough to get it, then we'll have to maybe go to Plan B here. So the zoning thing is important, which we'll talk about at a later time as far as how to get that done and when to get it done. So this is to give the planning board as much time as they need to get it done. So you could always have two if you had to, I mean, I don't want to do that,
Mm.
but you could.
Mm.
Okay.
Just to say, everybody stay in communication and we'll continue to watch developments here.
Mhm. Sure. And if anything arises from now to the end of the year, from any of the departments, I'll be sure to pass it along. But I mean, right now, everything is trending pretty well, other than those.
We could also, by November 1st, we're gonna have free cash certified. So we could also appropriate that, and that wouldn't hit the tax rate, so you could do it that way, right?
But I think you still have to include it in the recap.
You
right?
do, you
Yeah,
do. It would delay the recap a little bit.
right.
Might be possible, but it'd be
I
tight.
think, just think about that, but
Yeah.
yeah, if we get this grant or we get the other one, we got three that are on the table. So if we need matches for others,
Yep.
we don't want to not get the grants. Okay, anybody have any questions for our finance team? Andrew? Nope. Marguerite? Al? Sam?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you
Good work.
guys. Seriously,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody want to take a break? Andrew's not here to take a break.
I don't know. It's somewhere.
Yeah, I'll take a break.
You're not
5
here,
minutes.
Andrew. Are you taking a break?
Yeah.
Okay.
You find out where it is.
You want a break? Okay, we will reconvene at 5 to 9.
It's sort of medieval. Here you are doing numbers and entries, coding and all of these things. How many hours did you spend just putting it all in there? It must have been
I spent very little time getting numbers in. My first pass, I took some of the PDFs off the assessor's website and turned them into real numbers. And the second pass is directly off of Andrew spreadsheets.
Wow. It's an impressive bunch of understandable information.
And that was the problem I had with the every word. It's beautiful accounting and it's not approachable.
No, it's plugging.
Yeah, most people we have to type 3 letters. I really, one of the things that I enjoy is the numbers being misused. We got triggered, and they kept hearing average. I get this statistics unsupported. Yeah, I have to do it. Mama always said, you know, take care of work is Andrew's.
Are you guys ready to get started again?
We're not quite back. You probably can't hear us. Can you hear us?
I can hear muffled comments.
Okay, we're
but-
not back yet.
Okay.
One more minute. Where's my greet? Good. Yeah. Dawson, you ready? Yeah. All right, so we're back in session at 9 o'clock. Okay, so the next one is to discuss the use of Finn if it were to become a town building. And I know you may say, well, why do this now? Let's wait and find out if it's going to, but it's important because we're assuming that we're going to get asked that question at town meetings, so we want to at least have a general answer as far as that goes. So I've got a proposal, and I'll tell you why I'm proposing what I am. There's some background that you need to know about. So in late January, early February, Jason Malinowski and I, we went and met with the Council on Aging. And we said, what would you guys rather do? If Finn is a town building, would you rather move senior center there? Make the changes there that you need to be comfortable, or would you rather stay where you are? They voted unanimously to stay where they are. They want to stay at 32 Courtable, but what they do want is the bottom floor. They want John Parent to stay on the top floor because he's very helpful to them, and they want the bottom floor to be for their use. So that $3 million that we've now got in the capital plan for the yes to Neary is John Parent's number to move the departments on the bottom floor. What are you guys hearing? You're not listening to me. Okay. All right. Okay, Marguerite, I'll talk to you. Okay, so move the departments on the bottom floor to Finn, and then put a lift into 32 Courtable to get down to the bottom floor, and then do whatever they think is appropriate for the bottom floor of senior center for the seniors. Probably move the rec department over from 21 Highland to Then maybe you move youth and family services there instead of flag. That's on the table too. So that's kind of the conversation that's been had. So what we've got to do is come up with a process to, if Neary project were to pass, what's the process to determine what we're going to do with Finn? So, this is a recommendation, so kind of just key off this as far as what you may want to do. So how about this? We could charge capital with with assisting us and John Parent and others that they deem appropriate to make a recommendation on the use of Finn as a town building. Further, it would be made clear that any use recommendation does not include use as affordable housing, because that's apparently some people in town think that's what we're going to use Finn for. And I don't know where it came from, but again, I don't use social media, but apparently that's out there. So to make that clear in this charge tonight, that that's not what the plan is, to be used as a town building. Further, that the recommendation includes an estimated cost of any needed work to implement the recommendation with a view toward uses that require minimal capital expenditures and make use of facilities such as recreation facilities that currently exist at Finn. Further, that capital assume that the senior center remains at 32 Courteville Road, but the Finn plan provides more space for seniors at 32 Courteville than exists currently. What, 9 Courteville? I'm sorry. Oh, 32 is police station. Okay, take that back. 9 Courteville, sorry. That's the police station 32. All right, anyway, okay, let me keep going. So capital should work in close consultation with the seniors in forming the recommendation. So that's just my general starting point here as far as what could be a charge to capital to figure out what Finn would be used for if the Neary project were to pass.
And we think capital is amenable to that?
Yes. And
I
because I've talked to Jason Malinowski, yes.
have a suggestion.
Go ahead.
Give Finn to recreation to use and put in a swimming pool.
Okay, well, let's not get that detail tonight. We're just trying to come up with a process. And this is what capital is supposed to do. They're supposed to, maintain the capital plan. So throw it to them with John Parent to come forward based on what we circumscribe as far as what we want them to come back with. We don't want a $15 million community center, I assume, right? We want something very cost effective that still provides more room for town departments and also gives the seniors more room and possibly empties out 21 Highland.
Kathy, is the thought that this kind of builds off of the community center exploration committee, or it's going in a different, doing something different? Because there already was some work done on this, but
Jason chaired that committee, so
Yeah.
he's well aware of the work, but that was a $14-15 million project. So I know of no one that thinks that we want to pile that on top of this Neary school that I know of. So it's basically, maybe there's some things in that, Andrew, they could use. But the premise is to basically use this building as it. You still got to do the things like a roof. There's a little floor problem there. You still got to do those things. Those are in the capital plan. But to spend as little possible in, but make it a very useful building, give more room at the townhouse, for example, more room at the senior center, and then possibly give us ability to decide what to do with 21 Highland, because we don't have any use for it as far as town departments go.
Okay, so because I don't think that some of the longer term recommendations from that committee we should discard them or lose sight of them. But I think what you're suggesting is just things to do in the relatively short term.
Yeah, but also, Andrew, I'm just assuming that someone at the special town meeting legitimately is going to say, well, what are you going to do with Finn if Finn gets closed as a school? So we're just trying to have at least a outline of the process and at least have some guardrails on what's going to be done. So someone doesn't think that there is a plan to build a $15 million community center.
And capital knows the history of the community center committee and so can include that as appropriate. But I do agree, Kathy, that it's good to have a focused approach here, and capital seems to me to be the right group to actually consider this, put the numbers together, put a plan together,
I
options.
mean, so Jason's going to do the presentation on the 10th. Andrew's going to do the presentation for advisory as far as the impact on the town. But what's Jason going to do when someone says, what about Finn? Just shrug his shoulders? I mean, so we're trying to give him something that we've guided them. This is not part of the Neary Build Committee. This is select board. Give him some general guidance as far as what at least we have done to answer that question.
Makes
Okay.
sense.
Something's got to give here, and because I've had an awful lot of people in the last month and a half, come up and thank me for being a skeptic on the Neary project, because they are terrified of the taxes that are in this thing. And, I can't tell you how many people are afraid that they're going to be taxed out of town. And, everybody's got to give a little. I'm going to get in trouble, but I don't really care. We may need to reassess the decision. We may want to keep the seniors happy. I'm a senior, but at some point, we've got to have some fiscal discipline here, because if Finn were to become a municipal building, we're going to have a lot of empty space in that building, given the uses that you just described. That does not fill that building up in any way, shape, or form. And, we're going to end up paying for maintaining it. That building is due for an overhaul in the next 15 years, like every other building in town. And that overhaul is going to be, it's going to be a seven-figure number, because it just is. And we may not be able to afford to do all of the things we want to do, or keep everybody in their current places, and try and manage our tax rates so that we don't tax people out of town. I mean, my wife is as good a liberal Democrat as you'll ever meet, and has never met a government program she doesn't like. And now she's giving me grief about the tax bills, and, asking me what I'm going to do about it. And I'm trying, but so I don't think we should be precluding. I think we have to do if this passes, I think a general reassessment of all of the buildings in town. And I don't think, I'm sorry to say this to the folks at the senior center, but I don't think we should have sacred cows, because everybody's going to have to contribute something, or we are going to start taxing seniors out of town. And we are going to be looking at, in 8 years, we're going to be looking at average tax bills of $20,000. And, you have to ask yourself, if you're living on a fixed income, or, you haven't got a six-figure income, whether you're going to be able to pay your share of that increase. This is a hefty increase. And, frankly, I'm a little skeptical, because if you see big increases, it's a classic hockey stick. We see big increases now, but it's going to be better in the future. I promise, really going to be better. So I got to say that I think we need to do a top to bottom review of all of the assets of the town, because frankly, there may be some that we want to sell. And, that's my 2 cents. I'll get off the soapbox now.
No, that's okay. Let me just say this. There are times when you get the impression that you believe you're the only fiscal conservative on sports. This is not true. I have strived mightily from my advisory days to here to do everything that I thought we could do to hold real estate tax bills down. You and I met a few years ago, long before you were on the select board, when I was running by your house or something, and you say, Kathy, we've got to replace people with automation. We got to really start being more productive, whatever. I said, agree. tell me what to cut. And so it's easy to say we should cut. It's hard to find what to cut. We try every year to get this budget down. So I'd still say the problem with taxes is not Neary, it's the total, that $20,000. It's a lot of money, right? So if you want to broaden this and say we want capital to come back and what we really want them to do is look at all the buildings, we could do that. But the point is, we want people to understand that I think two things as far as the Neary Building Committee project. We don't have a $15 million community center on tap coming 6 months later. That's not the plan. Make that clear. There is no one that I know of that has said turn Finn into affordable housing. I don't know where that came from. It hadn't been uttered in this board. So what we're trying to do is provide at least a framework so people understand that there will be a plan for Finn. Maybe there's going to be a plan for other buildings like 21 Highland. I just said that if we move them out, that building's empty. So that leads to a discussion on what to do with that. We've got a committee that's going to come back by June 30th and make a recommendation. So I am absolutely in the same page with you as far as trying to find a way to cut taxes in this town. I am as concerned. I mean, 4 out of 5 of us are seniors sitting here tonight, right? Andrew's the only one that's not. So I get it. I went to the Dolomites Club last week. I hear them, but I don't think Neary is the problem, the project. I think other things are causing. We've got a we got fixed cost. We've got a very small base. There are good things that are coming that will be obvious, I think, in the next few months that are going to help us as far as trying to spread that base, which we all know we need to commercially. But we've got to say something, Al, on the 10th as far as Finn, because we can't just sit up there and go, right? So help me. What do you want?
Well,
What do you want Jason to be able to say on the
I
10th?
think you can certainly say that we have no plans to turn Finn into affordable housing, because I'm not aware of any either, and
Okay.
I'm as attached to affordable housing as
It's
anybody.
fine, but I just don't
Right,
think it's Finn.
right, there are no plans. There does need to be a complete reassessment of all of the capital assets of the town if this passes, because we cannot sustain all of the assets that we have, and so we need to be right-sizing the asset base, and that probably means an expanded role for Finn, and maybe that means, then we may have to deal with some sacred cows. I would not promise the seniors that you're gonna get to stay in Corderville Hall. I mean, I'm sorry, I know that, people get attached to it and it's a nice facility, but I would not make that promise, because those same seniors are coming up and telling me, you're taxing me out of town. And so, that building costs money and it has value, and maybe we could, you can't have it both ways. So
Okay, so what if we do those two things, right? Say those things, but add a third to it, which is there are no plans to build a $15 million community center.
yeah, right. Yeah.
Right. So there's no plans for another big building project. So say it that way. So we at least let people know that what they're looking at here, there's another shoe to drop as far as a year from now. We want to do this on top of that.
Right.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right.
But we're still asking capital to come up with a plan.
I think capital's got to, I mean, we've got to get capital involved in this so they can start looking at this and come back with an open,
Yep.
but we can give that specific charge. I mean, this is just to get through this special town meeting and have that question an answer to it, a reasonable, broad answer to it.
I did have one point. The library needed to expand because it doesn't have any storage space. And I think Finn would have space that's safe to put things at the library. We have stuff packed into the stairwells.
Yep.
Yep.
It's a mess.
Yep.
We have no attic. The basement is rooms to meet in that are full of pots and pans from the cooking club. We need space there, and I think Finn would.
Good use for Finn, yep. Add to the list.
Okay, good enough, those three things? Okay, everybody agree?
Yeah.
Okay,
Hey, Al, let me add one more point. I think that, I hear the same thing you do in terms of taxes. The issue for me is that I think we tend to focus on some of the wrong issues here, in the sense that I don't think we can cut expenses to relieve that pressure on taxes, given the shift that we've seen between residential and commercial property. That seems to be moving along, as driven by real estate prices and so forth, and economic conditions on Route 9, et cetera. To me, the issue is finding a way to generate revenue for commercial taxpayers along Route 9. I think that is what can dig us out of this particular hole, and we are working on it, as you well know. So that to me is the safety valve here in terms of being able to not have to do such draconian cost cutting potentially, and finding a way to keep the pressure on residential property taxes to a manageable level. That to me is the path to success here. It's not fast, it's not easy, and we are working on it, but I think that's the key to success with this.
I agree with you completely that, you know, growing our commercial base is absolutely critical. It's a slow process, you know, I'm probably not going to benefit from it. But then again, you know, like you, we don't buy green bananas anymore. But you know, to get to the promised land, which is 8 to 10 years out, which is realistically when we can turn the super tanker around.
Combination of things, but that to me
Yeah.
is a key part of
But,
the process.
you know, I think, as you know, I was willing to cut heads this time around, and next budget season, I will be ready to cut heads again. And I
And you
think,
may have a lot of support for that too. One of the, your hockey stick, there's a reason about hockey stick. It's not a made up hockey stick. We can go.
they never are.
Right, but no, there really is a reason for it. So we won't go into that. So we think we've been way too conservative with next year's budget because I don't think we're going to approve that kind of tax increase. But that's what we had to use because we haven't made that decision. I agree with Sam that the big picture is get that denominator much bigger so that that ratio goes down and we really do help people.
But the people who are in town today need to know that we're listening to them today. And that means, you know, that we can't have untouchable things. You know, it can be painful, but we can't have untouchable things. So I've said my piece.
All right, so we're happy with the three things that Jason can, okay. Everybody okay with that? Okay.
Which are that we want you to look into how to use Fin. It's not going to be the new senior center, and it's not going to be a affordable housing project, right?
Right, and we're not going to we have no plans to do another large building project if beyond the Neary project. Once we get past that, there's no new school. There's no brand new community center like the group came up with. So yeah, that's what I think we can say as far as a broad, so that they do understand, they can look at the numbers we've given them and understand that if that's palatable, they're not looking for something else a year from now that would make this even worse.
I'd like to underline that the Corderville Road building works very well for the senior center now, and it's sort of organically happened and they like it.
They're very comfortable there. There's
And
no doubt about it.
I think it's a good place for them, and I don't think we should even think about putting them anywhere else if they don't want to go.
Well, I agree that they should definitely have a big voice in where they are, given they asked for so little, but that's down the road. I'm just trying to give Jason the ability to answer a question with select board direction.
So in the end, Kathy, I think the proposal you made makes sense. And I'm just thinking, when there's very kind of complicated interlocking issues, I think the best way to often proceed is we just go slowly, step by step. Because all of these, discussions about if this passes, what do we do with this particular building? They're all so complicated. And there's also, I think, very broad popular support for keeping each of those properties pretty much kind of looking like they look like right now. They all affect individual neighborhoods. So that's all to the point of, I think, when I take this slow approach is probably the best way of handling it.
All right, so Tim Fling's got his hand raised.
Tim Fling, 18 Main. I just wanted to say, as a member of the Community Center Exploratory Committee, something to maybe think about too. There was a couple zero or near, not zero, but near zero cost options on there with different level of renovations. We ended up doing the senior center as I believe a moderate renovation. Everything else is a low cost, and that was where most of the cost of the $15 million funnel report came from. There might be something worth looking back at that though, at that funnel output. that might help some of this conversation now, because part of the building was a library annex. The other part was the senior center, and the last part was rec, and rec was almost wholly not touched and was like a move-in ready situation, which would have cost the town pretty much nothing. So it might be helpful for this conversation to look back at that final report, because I do know that there's tiers that would be worth noting now.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you,
I-
Tim. And of course,
I
Jason
agree
is
with
well
that.
aware of it, so he will. Thank you. That's it.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to speed things up. No Freddie, no Chris LeBron. Okay, so we're going to skip the 21 Highland Committee because no one's here to do the report. Okay. They're supposed to be done by June 30th. I'm not sure we're ever going to get
Yeah,
the.
it looked to me like there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Kathy, I would just say, since that we've now we have scheduled this and postponed it, I think,
3
several
times.
times.
3.
That maybe one of the things we could do is just, I could say, acknowledge that we've received the report. I mean, if there's any feedback we can give to the committee, it looks basically this report, it does not have a lot of substance to it at this
does.
point. I mean, the one concrete suggestion that I would have to it is that one of the things I think the committee should consider is are there leasing options for the building that would make sense, that would enjoy popular support? I think that's kind of touched on indirectly, but I think that's something that they should look at. Other than that, I think we can maybe just, if anyone else has any feedback, we could provide to the committee, but rather than scheduling this like a 4th time, where the report doesn't really say that much anyway, I think that's maybe the best way to proceed.
I agree with you. There's not anything here to really talk about. They've got a whole lot of work outlined in the report. If they haven't gotten that started, then I'm not sure they're going to get
Time
it done.
crunch, yeah. And again, I agree that there's a lot of tasks outlined here. And to me, the crunch is to actually get moving and get this stuff done. I don't disagree with the list, but time is now extremely short. So please,
2 months.
let's focus and get it done.
All right, everybody agree? Okay. All right, let's now speed this up. Okay, so chair's report. I wanted to mention the NEC 5K race on May 3rd because they were very gracious. That race was supposed to be on May 10th, the date of the special town meeting, but we asked them, Mark asked them to move it. They did. So I just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of it. It's a very big fundraiser for them. The work that this organization does is truly wonderful, needed, et cetera. And we've got it right here in Southborough. So we should all try to support them to the extent we can. So it's May 3rd at 10 o'clock at Neary. If anybody is wanting to run, I haven't run in a couple of years, so I almost got out there and started running to see if I could do it, but I've been so busy with Mr. Pfaff, I haven't had time, so I don't think I'm going to make it. Although I guess you can walk if you want to. Okay.
Got to stay mobile for town meetings. So don't
Yeah,
let
that's
you
right.
go.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so I'm going to pass these out. Remember, Mental Health Month is coming. They've asked us to wear the green ribbon to honor it. They have got a lot of stuff planned, and it's going to be posted, I assume, downstairs, et cetera, but it's really good stuff. So we should try to make sure it's on My Southborough, that people really see this and hopefully participate. One I do want to point out is, and give Rotary a shout out, Rotary's going to do their food trucks like they have the last 3 years, same place. And on the 28th? Yeah, 28th is the last day of this mental health month, awareness month. So on that day at the community center, Youth and Family Services hosts an event. They recognize a person that they're going to honor, and give the Lori Sugarman Whittier Award. But it's also the night of the food truck. So it's a nice thing to put together, especially if it's a nice night. Get your food, then come across and do that and back and forth. So shout out to Rotary too for doing the food trucks for the 2 Wednesdays in May and 2 Wednesdays in June. Okay, Hopkinton Water Connection at last. So everybody's probably forgotten about it, right? So, we think we have some problems in Southborough. I'd say that compared to Hopkinton, we look pretty good compared to what they've been through. But anyway, they've been through quite a few things. This thing was almost done. We had an IMA that just needed a couple of tweaks, and they ended up, the DPW superintendent left his job, went to another job. They hired a new person. They've got a new town manager. The select board had some issues they turned over. So anyway, they have formed a group that is similar to our old Public Works Planning Board, is what I call it. It's an advisory board. And they have now met and they have discussed how to solve the water problem. And guess what they want to do?
Connect us out.
Yeah, so decided that the connection to Southborough is the better way to go. So we are about to start meeting with them again soon. Mr. Butler is very involved. Anyway, Tim Tees from PAR, he's been designing all the way through with no IMA. So they've spent already, I think, several $1 million on the design with no IMA. So anyway, that's the update. We'll keep everybody posted when things happen. So we've given
Kathy,
yeah,
can I ask a follow-up question? Because,
of course.
town meeting appropriated money for a peer review. I'm trying to remember the process. This would
Yes.
be a peer review for Southborough of the project that PAR has designed for Hopkinton.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
$200,000. And they keep asking us to go ahead and do it because they have to pay for it, Andrew. They reimburse us for it. So we're not going to,
Yeah.
we don't.
Because,
we pay
I
for
mean,
it,
this
it's
is,
our ahead.
this has been bubbling up, and I'm glad this was on the agenda here because didn't we also recently, I don't remember in what context in one of our recent meetings, we were discussing some of the water improvements on like Lynbrook Road, and it just reminded me that there was a very specific set of water improvements, infrastructure improvements that we looked like have a deal ready to go to get Hopkinton to pay for that in exchange for the connection. So that would be great to get that finally rolling.
$1 million for that.
Well,
goes for water.
I agree. As Bill kind of said when he first looked at it, this is a win-win. Why would anybody not want to do this? So anyway, low off the mark, but anyway, so I'll keep you posted, but at least we have heard from them.
We can't really do the peer review until they sign the IMA.
That's right.
Yeah.
They want us to, but we keep saying, no, we're not doing anything until you sign it. So you may get way down the road and have to redo some stuff, but that's on you. So they're well aware of the risk of continuing the design without the peer review being engaged. So yes, that's exactly right.
And then the IMA is the mechanism through which the additional Southborough specific water infrastructure work would be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
I mean, that contract was done. All we had,
Yep.
there was just one thing we needed to work out, but the economic terms were in there. They had agreed with them. So it really was kind of a shame it didn't get done when they should have. But
I actually had a chance to chat with their new DPW director, who is very eager to get this done and is frustrated that it hasn't been moving because there's real pressure from town to get it done. So puzzling in terms of why.
well, let's just say they've got a funny way of showing their eagerness. That's all I'm
right.
going to say. Okay. Enough said. Enough said. Let's get it done. Okay. So Mark, Al, you want to do yours next? And then
Yeah.
Mark, I can either do yours or you can do it.
Real quick, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is in the process of updating our housing production plan, which the state requires us to do. And we plan on signing a contract, I believe, Thursday morning, where we will pick one of the two vendors. It's going to cost us about $45,000. It'll come out of the Affordable Housing Trust. That's it.
That's just FYI for
Yeah.
us, right? All right, Mark, do you want to do your two? Okay, Vanessa's going to do your two.
Uh, So we just wanted to recognize the retirement of Cindy Henderson Beard, who's been our outreach coordinator for nearly 27 years. So Cindy is going to wrap up her wonderful career here with the town on June 30th. We extend our congratulations and obviously many thanks to the many, many senior citizens that she's helped, over 2.5 decades. And also just wanted to thank our businesses that were affected during the CSX road closure, April 22nd to 24th. That went really well. That wrapped up very nicely, and we're appreciative that all that work is now concluded.
Agree on both counts. Okay, consent agenda. We've got minutes from the 1st, the 3rd, and the 7th. We have got the pay rate for election workers, and we've got, does anyone have the executive session minutes? I still didn't see them.
They were distributed.
So you guys have read those?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just abstain.
Yeah.
'Cause those, okay, so anybody want to hold A,
Yes.
B, C? You're gonna be okay with C? with executive session?
I wrote, it.
Oh, okay, sorry. Everybody okay with C?
I have many typos.
All right, so let's, I'll make a motion to approve a consent agenda items B and C.
Second,
Roll call vote. Andrew?
Aye.
Marguerite?
Aye.
Al?
Aye.
Sam?
aye.
Cook is aye. 5-0 for those two. Okay, Sam, minutes.
April 3rd, a couple of Scribners. Line 21, Mass School Building Authority, not administration.
Yep.
And at line 64, sees value in the project to meet. Still left out a word there.
Sees value in project to meet
In
the
project.
educational needs, okay?
So that's it.
Okay, I've got one on that one. It was Thursday, April 3rd, not Tuesday. Everybody agree?
Yep. I've got to edit on April 3rd as well.
Okay, go ahead, Andrew.
On line 71, mentions Patty Burns Fiore, who I see in the audience as well. I think it says she's at 3 Rock Point Road. I think she lives on Winter Street instead.
She definitely lives on Winter Street. I think it's 10. So just put Winter Street, Bridget. You don't have to put the exact address. Put Winter Street.
I actually have a comment on minutes in general, and I'm gonna give it here. We produce these exhaustively detailed minutes, which are well beyond the minimum requirement. And Brian Shea said something useful the other day at the wastewater meeting, which is minutes need to record votes taken and the absolute minimum number of things. And, if somebody really wants to see what's been said, they can go and watch the video, and our meetings are all videoed. I think we could save some money on minute taking if we went from these detailed diatribes, detailed descriptions to, this is what was discussed, the topic that was discussed, these were the motions that were made, the minimum required, because, this is, just one of those little expense things that, it's made sense in the 18th century. It makes no sense in the 21st.
But there's a reason for this. It wasn't always this way. This is because things are recorded. They've got the videos. They can go back and watch, and she can rewind. This is just not us. There's a lot of minutes that look just like this, all the way through, because you can go back and you've got it recorded and you can keep repeating it until you get all this. So you've
Right.
got the ability to do this. I
Right,
didn't
but-
have that ability before.
This costs us money.
I didn't say I didn't disagree with you. I'm just saying there's a
Oh,
reason.
I know why it is, because
Believe it or not, Al, we're making progress. I've actually been making this point for 5 years now. And we're about half of what we used to be when we started. So not that we shouldn't or couldn't go to another half.
yeah, let's get the other half done
I'm
and
sympathetic.
save some money on minute taking.
Hey.
I'm off the soapbox.
Wait a minute. You've been on this.
She does. Okay, so our minute taker's coming over to talk to us. Come on over, Bridget.
But and Bridget does a wonderful job.
She does.
Oh.
She does.
Thank you. No, but I just want to clarify that Bridget Rubin, recording clerk, that the length of the meeting determines the payment. You're not paying extra for the detail that I provide. And I certainly, I welcome your comments, Al, and I will take them. If you want the minutes done more in a looser fashion with less detail, I'm happy to do that. But what determines my pay is the length that you guys talk. So that really is how it's
Wow.
structured.
See, Al,
Yeah.
because of, so now, okay, now we know how to cut it down.
There's a soapbox surcharge here.
I'll just speak up. Bridget,
Okay, all
Bridget,
right.
I like the way you do the minutes right now. I really wouldn't change a thing. And also, it is true that there are YouTube videos of all these meetings, but I often find it useful to, instead of rewatching a meeting and having to forward through a bunch of things, just to have a set of minutes where you can do a word search on it. So I wouldn't really change anything about the way we do it. I think you're doing a good job.
There are many times
I
when the
agree.
detail has really
I
helped you
agree.
find what you
Yeah.
go back and look. So there are times then it really does help.
And sometimes the video, you can't hear people.
Yeah, and we have made progress. I could live with what we have now, basically.
All right,
I've got to hold. I have a significant edit, I think, to the April 7th minutes.
okay, so
and I
we're
think
finished with
someone
April
else
3rd,
Notice this.
right? We finished.
Yeah.
April 7th, that's when I did.
Well, there's something very significant in there if I'm
Okay.
looking at it.
All right, so we're done with, we've got first and we've got third, right? So first was
Yeah.
fine. We only amended third, right? Correct?
Yeah, so
Liam?
on the April 7th, it was on the posted agenda for the board to vote on the Neary School project. And
Oh
I
my
don't
gosh.
see it in the minutes.
Well, that's a Freudian slip. You're right, Andrew. Okay, so I will fix this one because I did this one. So Bridget, this is not you. This is me. So thank you, Andrew. Pretty substantive, huh? Okay.
Absolutely.
Don't hire me as a minute taker, please. You know, I dictated this to Melanie because I was in such a hurry. Oh my God, can I believe I forgot that? Okay, so yes, we did vote on the Neary project, 4-1. All right, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from 4-1 as written, 4-3 as amended, and 4-7 as amended.
Second.
Roll call vote. Andrew?
Aye.
Marguerite? Aye. Al?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
And Cook is aye. Okay, moving on. Okay, so we normally do this. We just take a look at what we thought went good, what went bad, what we should change as far as annual town meeting. So anybody want to start as far as what they thought, what we could change if we chose to? Marguerite, you want to start?
I think the lighting level in the auditorium made it difficult sometimes.
And I'm not sure there's anything they can do about it because I asked Greg about that at a different meeting. He said, that's it. This is all you can do. So
Okay.
it is low for sure. Okay, so lighting, so you want it higher, right? Anything else?
I've got a comment. There was a point where I think it was John Tomini said, he thought that we could do a better job of putting out information in advance, maybe on the website about not just the articles, right, but also the
Motion.
motions, because there was confusion in the audience about, I think the moderator and town council did a good job of explaining kind of technically, for some really important articles like the, collective bargaining agreements, why just the text of the article said we're asking town meeting to appropriate a sum of money, right? But obviously people want to know how much. So it probably doesn't affect the upcoming special town meeting as much, but that's something that we probably can do. Even if between our last select board meeting and the time of the town meeting, where, Mark and the select board staff put together the contemplated list of motions, that's something we could put up on the web. And then there's just, probably some thought should be given to the most effective way of like, what do we put up on the screen so that people can follow it?
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to publish
The
at
mo-
least the draft motions.
Ahead
Because
of-
I've had a number of people ask me about the Neary warrant, which does not describe any money at all. And they ask, what's going to happen? I tried to explain that, the actual motion will be slightly different. That,
The motion will include the number.
yeah, yes, but the warrant does not.
That's right.
And that, there's enough fractional information going out. We need to clarify that. I think the second thing is we need to make the clickers work and just, get in the habit of using them.
Others do. We're
Yeah,
not sure if
this,
they can work.
yeah, this ought to become the normal way we vote.
Yep.
So here and that one. Okay, so.
And Kathy,
Go ahead.
if I can make another comment of the clickers, there were some, I don't know if it was too many people, but some loud voices, questioning whether the clickers were working correctly, etc. From where the vantage point that I saw, I could clearly see there was a representative from the clicker company who was there who said he thought this was simply that the number of seconds, the window that the vote was kept open just was maybe too short, and that whatever discrepancy was that there were people who were voting before the vote opened or after the vote closed. And you can take care of that with a simple, like, if it's the same company that the US House of Representatives uses, which I think Mr. Haggerty said, maybe there's some light that's put up on the screen. The vote begins now. 30 seconds, have a countdown clock, right? And then people will start to get used to it. But I trust the system way more with the clickers than the just taking these look out into the audience and do a quick, determination of whether something is 2/3 or half, something like that.
And I've watched other town meetings that use them for all votes, and it goes very smoothly. So it's certainly possible to make them work very.
We should not give up on the clickers. I think we should still promote them
Totally
and
agree.
Right. We
develop
Tim?
confidence in them.
Hold on just a minute, Tim. Let me just make one comment. As Tim knows, last night, the planning board, Martin Davis and I were there just to talk about the project, to field questions from the planning board about the project. And at the end, there was a question asked by a resident about the motion for the thing. So it is confusing. So we are going to post the motion for the special town meeting ahead of time, which will include the $108 million, But the warrant article is exactly what the MSBA gives you to put there. So you're doing what they make you do. In the motion, we'll have the number, but we will get that posted ahead of time, as far as that goes.
Well,
Okay.
Kathy,
So-
and I don't know, there might be a way where, since my understanding is the motion has to be for the gross amount, right?
Yep. He's
I
gonna
don't know if there's
explain
some way
that.
you have an asterisk on that that just explains that.
He's going to
the
explain
anticipated-
why that still is the cap on the project and why, so that's all going to be explained because that seems to be an issue too, as far as other things go. So that will be explained, Andrew. Okay, so we all agree clickers need to work, right? Okay, anything else, Andrew, as far as postmortem? Andrew? No?
I have other thoughts, but I'll just leave them for another day.
So Tim, let us get through what we're talking about, then I'll come. You want to talk about clickers?
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment on that.
On clickers?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Tim Woodland Road. I don't want to particularly want to give up on the clickers, but I think the notion that simply waiting longer is simplistic and wrong. I looked fairly carefully at what was going on with mine. My first vote was never counted. The second one, when Haggerty and company came walking up the aisles, it was a good 10 minutes before it registered, and it only registered because Jim intimidated it into finally working. From an engineering point of view, I'm convinced that it's more likely to be radio frequency interference, channel overload, people's phones in the thing. It's not just wait longer. Someone has to seriously take a look.
Probst agrees with you, so we'll get it resolved, right? There's a solution here. You agree?
I'm sure there's a solution, whether it's, taking people's phones away, I don't know.
Well,
But
that's probably not going to happen.
But I just want to dispel the notion that it's likely to be just wait a little longer and it'll work. I waited 10 minutes, it didn't work.
So we're not using clickers as a special town meeting. It's too much concern that they won't work and then there'll be general distrust of the vote, et cetera. So there's going to be no clickers at this special town meeting. Okay, I've got some more things. Mine are more about the articles. So I thought select board had a pretty good night. Budget passed. No changes. There were a couple of proposed amendments, but they didn't pass. So I thought that was good. Given the big increase in a couple of budgets, I thought there'd be more of an issue as far as those go. There was a blog post that said, I'm surprised Kathy Cook didn't do a report or do something up there about those budgets. And I just replied, look, we had the police chief, the fire chief sitting right there ready to talk. No one asked a question.
Yeah.
So I was surprised. Okay. The two CPA articles that were substantive passed. So we've got the Affordable Housing Trust money where we wanted it. And we've got a pretty good project as far as the rail goes. So I thought that was good. I was surprised when Beth Mellis explained that part of it was missing because of the road project. I didn't know that, but it still needed to be done. So I thought that was good. I'm sure the planning board was very disappointed with what happened with their articles. I mean, they got the parking done. I'm still not sure why they didn't try to have 28 voted on, because they only need 50% on that one.
Yeah.
They had more than 50% on 29.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why they postponed that one, but they did. If they thought there was some conflict in language, they could have fixed that, right? But they didn't. So anyway, see what they're gonna do. I haven't heard what they plan to do as far as coming back with revised articles. Breakneck Hill article, that one surprised me. That's the one I had the motion. I had talked to Melissa, so, it would have helped to have Melissa Danza there. So we'll get that fixed as far as whether it really is time to close that out. We can do that in November, so I'm not too worried about that one. I think this to me is lesson learned. I think we should again try to encourage people who we know have small issues with the budget to come to advisory select board ahead of time and let's get them resolved. Claire, $2,700, right? Bonnie, 27,000. Try to get those small things worked out ahead of time so we don't spend so much time talking about things that are truly immaterial to the budget. Let the time be spent talking about the budget as a whole and digesting exactly what they're trying to vote on versus spending so much time on small things and then kind of ignoring the big things, which is we added 3 policemen and a deputy fire chief. Not one person asked about it.
I've had a couple people approach me asking for a mechanism for across the board cuts, which are difficult at the moment to do. They're impossible at the moment to do.
Northport tried to do it the other night, 15% across the board.
Yes.
We've had that proposed.
Well, Tim Litt did it 2 years ago, a 1%.
Beg your pardon?
Tim Fling, sorry, Tim
Fling.
Litt.
The other
Fling,
Tim.
Fling.
And I think we ought to think about a mechanism. The notions that were expressed to me were that citizens who are frustrated that, that they can't really have an impact on an individual budget. They just want to be able to, reach a lever and say 2% and let the hall vote, and that there ought to be a mechanism for that. And, it may be that it requires a bylaw to do that, to set that mechanism up. I know you.
Far too simplistic. I mean, I think it's a legitimate concern is that I want to take 2% out of this budget. But I think you need to do it in a way that makes sense as opposed to whacking everybody by 2%.
Sometimes the meat axe is,
Maybe.
Yeah, but 2% to a small budget means a lot more than 2% to the school budget. So we can talk about it.
Yeah. I think there ought to be a mechanism, I believe, I've had some people who know our budgets well suggest that.
Well,
that's
Mr.
something.
Butler was one that I believe you talked to, and
Yeah.
he, I think, tried to call Tim Fling to talk about it and didn't get that done, but whatever, so we can talk about it. But another way to do that is to come to some of the meetings we have when we're talking about budgets and then.
That seems like, for a lot of people, that seems like, inside politics. It's yeah,
If you care about it, you ought to be willing to
Well,
work.
yeah, I know that's a view, but that's not everyone's view. And,
Can you
I think,
imagine 15%? I mean, it didn't pass, but
Well-
apparently it went on a long time, I guess, before they
well,
didn't get it done, so.
you do it once and, you probably won't do it again. Don't touch the stove. It's hot.
All right, so, but continuing on my vein, the time that it took for Claire to talk about the $2,700, Bonnie to talk about the 27, the other reason people don't come is because of the time, right? The meeting started at 6:30, it ended at 11:30, we had 5 hours. This was a pretty straightforward warrant. We should have been able to get it done a lot faster than 5 hours. So we got to continue to try to find ways to make things, deal with important things and not get hung up on things that are fairly minor.
That's the purview of the moderator, really, isn't it? I mean, that's the moderator's job if we feel that.
You're right, it's right, but we could also, if we knew Claire was worried about the $2,700 for that, we could have dealt with that ahead of time. If Bonnie had come to us before she did, which was the night of, to say this is what she wanted to do, she was at the public safety meeting that day. She could have said there that she didn't like the way we're staggering those, and we could have at least discussed it. But anyway, okay. Sam,
Nothing that hasn't already been raised.
what you get for going last?
I was delighted that we got out one night.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, thank gosh, so we did.
Very helpful.
And of course, we have also encouraged citizen petitions to try to get those resolved ahead of time too. So we don't have so many of those. And we only had one. So that was heading in the right direction. Right?
I think the moderator did a good job of moving things along and he didn't shut people down, which was good.
Yeah, I mean, the reality, this is legislation. There's nothing neat, tidy and efficient about it. It just, I've been going to town meetings as long as the rest of you. Except maybe for Andrew, he's still a kid, but, yeah. Compared to Congress, we're a paragon of efficiency.
All right, so that's what we'll
Low
keep.
bar, thank you.
So there's two people,
It is a low bar.
so bring them over. Patty, go ahead.
Hi, Patricia Burns Fiore, 10 Winter Street. I just wanted to make a comment in regard to what you were talking about with people wanting to reduce budgets during town meeting instead of discussing it with the select board or committees ahead of time. I know there were a number of people that were trying to get the budget before this town meeting to see what those individual line items are. And I'm not talking about just the budget that's printed in the warrant, the actual costs and expenses as the Excel file. And I don't think that was available until just a few days before town meeting. Maybe I'm wrong, but it was finally sent to me about 3 days before town meeting. So if you're talking about saying, you want to cut the police budget by 1% or 2%, you really have to, as I think it was Andrew was saying, you have to know what you're looking to cut within that budget. But if you don't have the actual budget for those departments, it's hard to do that ahead of time. Just my comment.
Thank you. Is Tim over? Tim?
Yeah, Tim Blake, 18 Main. I have two things. On the clicker front, I was wondering, I don't know if it's logistically possible, but to build confidence in them, if you could click on it when you walk in, when you check in, up to a certain cutoff within the meeting time, and see on the screen your clicker represent on the screen, that would build public confidence in that it actually does click, and when you do it, it goes somewhere. So I don't know if it's logistically possible, but it would be interesting if it could be solved up to a certain point in the meeting. And the second thing that I have is if there's a way to do a time limit per question, and then the hall has to extend that time. So say for like a bigger thing that needs more debate, the hall would vote to extend and say you have a cutoff of 30 minutes. Some of these articles would have an automatic cutoff, and people that are waiting to make a motion to move the question don't have to wait 10 people deep to be able to get that opportunity. So if that is something we could look into, I think that would help also expedite these meetings, just to kind of have a natural point where if the hall has an opinion, simple majority, 2/3 majority, whatever we decide that would be able to automatically instill that move the question or extend the time perspective, because I believe it's 2/3 majority to be able to move the question anyway. So if 2/3 of the hall said, let's vote, then we already have that point.
It's a good suggestion, but that is the moderator's call. So that would be a good conversation to have with the moderator, but thank you. Okay, we're almost done. Last one is to discuss, you probably wonder why we're discussing Heritage Day 2027. Vanessa, go ahead.
So the Tricentennial Committee has been talking about this over the course of their recent meetings, that Heritage Day in 2027 falls on Yom Kippur, which starts at sundown the evening before. And this board historically has veered away from public meetings and large events on those Jewish holidays. So they would like the select board to weigh in on, would you agree do you think moving Heritage Day to the Sunday afternoon before would be amenable? Or do you have other thoughts? We've talked with recreation, we've talked with veterans. The issue with the rec folks brought up was, you may lose some of your vendors from Heritage Day if you're shifting to Sunday versus Monday. There may be folks that we want to be part of a larger parade that, may already be committed to other, fall festivals. But there would be plenty of notice if the board were willing to make a decision sooner rather than later.
When does the holiday begin? Sundown, Sunday?
Sundown on Sunday evening, and the clocks are turned in early November that week. So it looks like sunset wouldn't be until after, 5:30 or so. But we wouldn't want to start until after Sunday morning church services.
So she was thinking maybe start the parade at noon And then start the Heritage Day at, 1:30 or so and give the vendors 3 hours like they normally have.
Um,
And,
And Andrew is our tricentennial rep.
so I would have much more concern if we were talking about moving a weekend, but if this is just basically moving it less than 24 hours, I think that's a reasonable compromise. Do we know if St. Mark's has to be okay with it, right? Because the main vendors and everything are on their field, so that's something important. I don't know if they would not. I know their football field is a little bit uphill from there, but it would be better if there wasn't a conflict between a St. Mark's football game and Heritage Day.
Right. And we haven't approached St. Mark's yet. We wanted to get some feedback from this board first.
So I think on balance, that's something that I would support.
Yeah, I agree. It's, the holiest day of the Jewish calendar, so.
I think my sense of it is that it would be, you rush out of church, you do Heritage Day, and then Yom Kippur starts. It's sort of like, it's scheduled in there, but I think Yom Kippur is supposed to require some thought beforehand. It's a holy day. It's not just, okay, it starts at this time. It's kind of the work up to it. And it's the same thing with church. You don't want to rush out of church, do Heritage Day, like sandwiched in there. I don't know. It seems to me that,
so what would be your alternative suggestion?
I don't know.
That's the problem.
But it just
Um,
seems like squishing it in, 3 o'clock Heritage Day, 5 o'clock Yom Kippur. It's like, it's too much.
And this is not the normal parade. This is going to be a very nice, long.
Scaled up.
Monday
Great.
is a school holiday too.
It is.
It is, yes,
So moving it to another weekend again doesn't give you,
correct.
much
You run
flexibility.
into other conflicts.
yeah, not a great solution.
I'll be quiet.
I don't see a better solution than Sunday. And yes, that is inconvenient in a variety of ways, but
Andrew, have a seat.
we have a better idea coming.
Here we go.
Andrew Pfaff, 50 Oak Hill Road. What about Labor Day? I think the schools are usually back at that point in time, and I know some people go away, but the weather would be a little bit warmer. I mean, the last couple of Heritage Days have been freezing cold, but having it a month earlier, maybe have better weather.
We did look into, Travis and I were talking about that today, and Marlboro still does a fairly large Labor Day parade, but that's something I'm happy to bring back to the committee, to the Tricentennial Committee.
Ours will be twice as good.
Interesting, yeah.
I mean, school's back in session at that point, barely, the Wednesday before, right? Public school. But a lot of people still go away for that weekend for Labor Day. So I don't know what the best answer is here.
Having another-
But what Marguerite said is true. Let's see. So Andrew, I don't know what time your church gets out, but mine gets out at like 11:45, I believe is the second. I go the first one. Second, I think it's 11:45. So yeah, it'd be rushed.
But on Labor Day, again, that is not perfect. On the other hand, that is far more relaxed in terms of other conflicts there.
So maybe talk about them both.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
see
we'll
where
bring that
people
back
are.
there.
whole weekend, everybody will want to go away.
That's right.
We'll continue to look at alternatives and bring them back to you.
All right, but I'm glad you guys realized this before too much time. Okay. All right. So I think that's it. Any public comment by hands raised?
Uh,
Oh, okay, go ahead, Kevin, when you get over.
it's there.
Hi, Select Board. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Kevin Miller, 18 Lattisquama. A final word, if I may, about the clicker situation. Quick search shows that there are some 70 communities in Massachusetts right now that employ clickers to record votes at town meeting. The clickers in Southborough were approved 2+ years ago. The first time they were used, they failed. The company wasn't on site. The most recent occasion on April 8th, the company was present. So now they've got a month, having observed the failure and observed the conditions on site and the manner in which the clickers are used to remedy the problem. I just heard the Select Board, I think pretty much unanimously endorse the fact that the clickers can work, should work, and must work. And so I would encourage you, This is not casting any blame within town, but it is encouraging you to read the riot act to the vendor, because they've got a month to fix the problem. If you get the turnout that we're anticipating for this special town meeting of upwards of, a couple thousand people, and we're counting with individual tellers, Mr. Litt had his anecdote about the clickers. I've got my own about the way tellers sometimes function, counting in unison. I think you're courting some serious controversy. We had the vote on the St. Mark's Bell Tower that was done in a hot summer day by one vote. So I would just encourage you to hold the vendors' feet to the fire, because there's absolutely no reason why these clickers can't work, shouldn't work, and why it's simply unacceptable to think that we're going to go into one of the most consequential votes this town has ever faced, having to rely on tellers when we have a technology in place that we paid for and approved 2 years ago. Thanks for your time.
Kevin, one thing on that, I think there is also a paper ballot prepared for that. For the.
No,
special-
don't get out this.
Okay.
That would only be if someone made a motion to have a secret ballot. And that may happen, but that hasn't happened yet. To begin with? Forever?
No, just
Begin
on
with?
the 27th. On 2027, why don't we move Heritage Day to Columbus Day?
We always have done it on Columbus Day.
Well, wait a minute, I'm looking at the wrong calendar. Never mind. Forget it.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. All right, I think we're done. No public comment, right? Okay.
Correct.
Sam,
Second.
roll call vote. Marguerite.
Aye.
Sam,
Aye.
Al, Andrew,
Aye.
Lucas, aye, 5-0. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.